off the play fake. Right down the seam, and it's caught by Dante Thornton. A foot race. They won't catch him. 66 to the house.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
In the pistol.
Mullins, big opening, might be gone. Touchdown, Michigan.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And that one might have been touched, maybe. Scooped up by the return man, Parker Kingston, and now he's going to turn the corner. There he goes. Kingston to the 50. Still going. Kingston. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Wants it all, man-to-man coverage. Douglas is there and holds it in. Touchdown, FSU.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Big 12 opener comes down to this play. Sanders gets the feet set toward the end zone for the game. It is caught by Whistler, just like 1994.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, and we will try to update you on the latest when it comes to that Mountain West and Pac-12 fight, so to speak, on who keeps whom and who maybe changes their mind, and also now even a lawsuit involved with the Pac-12 not happy because of an agreement apparently the conferences have when it comes to when they decided to have their scheduling kind of meshed together. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina. In the studio today, Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter also is here. So here's the latest on what is going on. And this from Ross Dellinger. When it comes to the Pac-12 and also the Mountain West, Pac-12 has filed a suit against the Mountain West in federal court over millions in penalty fees that the Mountain West believes it is owed per documents obtained by Yahoo Sports. The Mountain West Conference requested Pac-12 pay $43 million in fees for acquiring the four members. That was the first part of what we'll get to, what is the next or possibly last part.
Well, it's such a weird situation that now you've got, yesterday was this team is staying, this team is leaving, and then Utah State leaves, and that throws a lot of things into question for the other teams in the conference. Air Force said they were going to stay, but now maybe they won't if the thing falls apart. And clearly the Pac-12 is trying to make the Mountain West dissolve so that they don't have to pay those fees, which is kind of the ESPN Texas OU plan. But now actually put into action where this is just as likely to happen as is it not likely to happen right now.
Yeah, so a really interesting day yesterday with just all the moving parts and everything that seemed to finally sort of settle in that got kicked back up again when UNLV decided, they weren't going to necessarily agree to stick where they were, and they were open to having more conversations and perhaps even heading to the Pac. And so that is a Jenga piece that gets pulled that you thought otherwise was in order. And now the whole structure is still kind of shaky no matter what angle you're looking at it from. You've got two conferences who both need one more team at this point and are fighting over exactly how that's going to go down. Yeah, it's all just very, very interesting stuff. You got Air Force who's hanging in the balance now because they could have an option to go and join the American. And now that you've had Utah State leave, that's led to UNLV and Air Force now saying, like, wait a second. So, you thought that – first of all, kudos to the American for just getting out there and being like, all right, we're shutting the door. We're done. Nobody's moving. We're all here together. You can stop looking at us and focusing on us. The American just kind of moves – off stage, right? And so now it's just this battle brewing between the Pac and the Mountain West, and the Mountain West thought that they had got all of their cards in order, and then obviously that changed during the course of just this show yesterday. So, yeah, now they'll take it to court, where the Pac-12 has been quite a lot lately, and they've had some successes there. But this basically boils down to that they should not have to require, or they should not be required to have to pay a bunch of money in a poaching penalty. So just to make that clear for everybody, this is not arguing over the exit fee. This is that went above and beyond, and that having more of this money being asked to be paid is an antitrust violation. So they're not saying that there shouldn't be an exit fee. It's just that there was that add-on to this, the poaching penalty that they are saying is not right or whatever, that they're arguing is as Nicole Auerbach said, unlawful horizontal restraint on competition. So it's very interesting. I don't know how this goes down, but the Pac has gone from pacifist to maybe a little dirty in this whole thing, depending on which way you want to look at it. And what did they know at the time they agreed to that original scheduling agreement? What did they foresee happening? And are they being a little dastardly and finding a way to turn this around and perhaps get out of paying that money and killing off a conference and therefore not having to pay this money? It's a very interesting chess match going on right now as these two try to duke it out and survive.
$17 million would be the exit fee per school. And then on top of that, they're asking for 10 more per school that is leaving. When Utah State late last night decided to go to the big Pac-12, then all of a sudden UNLV and Air Force, who seem to be tied at the hip in many ways, they said, well, wait a minute. We did this committed thinking we would have the full conference.
Yeah, and then Utah
and now
State.
they don't. Yeah,
Utah State originally you thought you had your 8. You had the 8 that you needed to be the Mountain West. And then when Utah State changed their mind, that basically opened up the whole thing to where then, UNLV, Air Force are like, well, wait a second. If they're not a part of the agreement, that wasn't what we originally agreed to. So that changes everything, and now everything's back open, and therefore now potentially having, if you're UNLV, certainly a conversation with the Pac-12, who needs one more team, and also if you're Air Force, perhaps looking at the Pac-12, but also looking at the American, where you could go and join Army and Navy and have all 3 of the service academies together. So both of those teams have options. That leaves the Mountain West in a lurch, feeling like you kind of had this all settled yesterday, but now you clearly don't, and now you might be in even bigger trouble if a couple of schools leave, because then you're suddenly down, to what would it be, like 6 schools, and then you've got a couple more, and so on and so forth. And so
you gotta have what, 8?
You gotta have 8, and they both are one short right now. Yeah. So they're both looking for one, and this is all about just the exorbitant poaching penalty that was tacked on to the regular exit fees and was a part of that scheduling agreement. So I don't know what was talked about when these two made that scheduling agreement. You look at some Pac-12 fans and they'll say, well, this was unconstitutional or unlawful to begin with. So the Pac knew what they were doing and knew this wouldn't be enforceable and that they could turn around and sue. And then there's others who believe that the Pac-12 is, trying to squirrel their way out of this and get their cake and eat it too. And I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. So I'm not sure where this goes except for to the courtroom, and that will be very interesting to see how that works out. But, it's a bit of a fight now brewing between these two, and the rest of the world just kind of watching along.
Some of you are asking in the chat room about, did Utah State leave? Yes.
Yes.
Hopefully you're listening to what we're trying to tell you, because even Dennis Dodd, Brett McMurphy, and others wrote a story about how chaotic the day was. And it got more chaotic last night. Utah State decided to leave, which then UNLV and Air Force decided, wait a minute, we decided to stick to the Mountain West because we thought it would be a full 8-team conference, which now, as we just said, was 7. And then there's the possibility Hawaii, which is a football-only team conference program, if they were to go and change to the Pac-12 would have 8, the Mountain West would have 6. So there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot to get to. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ, will join us today at 3:30 on the latest when it comes to realignment.
In that lawsuit, the Pac-12 against the Mountain West, because it's the Pac-12 suing the Mountain West, arguing that those poaching fees are, what's the right term for that? Not unlawful or...
They're exorbitant.
Exorbitant,
yeah.
Which is what the basis of the lawsuit is. So basically the Pac's trying to get their teams that they wanted from the Mountain West and pay the exit fee, but not have to pay the tacked-on exorbitant poaching fees.
Unlawful, unenforceable, and violation of antitrust law.
So the PAC is saying, like, the exit fee is one thing, but that poaching fee that you added on when we're agreeing to this scheduling alliance, that's boo-boo. We're not going to do that, and we're going to take you to court over that. So what was seen in that lawsuit by the Pac-12 was that they officially recognized that Utah State is now a member of the Pac-12. So, again, what that means is the Mountain West 8 that had agreed to stay together, one of them backed out, Utah State. So now everybody, like an Air Force or UNLV, is saying, well, this isn't what we agreed to yesterday, so we're no longer 100% all in, and we're weighing our options, which leaves the Mountain West in a pickle because now they're not at 8, and they could be at less than 7, depending on how this goes, whereas the Pac has Utah State, so now they have 7. They need one more to get to 8, which could be UNLV, could be Air Force.
Yeah, if the Mountain West loses both those teams, they're
pretty much toast. But they're also relying on those penalty fees, and so that's why they want that money. Why they originally put that in the agreement, and
to
so
lure other teams to get to
it's
the
that tug of war. But yes,
right.
Utah State is officially acknowledged in this lawsuit as a member of the Pac-12, and that's why that Jenga piece got pulled, and now the thing is swaying.
And they're
all
a part
over
of the
again.
lawsuit. They've already been added to the lawsuit too,
Yeah.
suing the conference they were in less than 24 hours ago. Now, this is not something, Garrett, that I sent to you, but Dan Wolken, USA Today, made this comment from a source involved in conference, the clout of conferences around the country. But the plan is going to be limited. Another reality facing the Pac-12. Memphis, one consultant told USA Today Sports, is not valued by TV rights holders significantly more than, let's say, Utah State. And, of course, Memphis has decided to stay in the AAC like the others did yesterday. Oregon State, and this is the one that Oregon State and Washington State, the two original Pac-12 leftovers who decided to bring the conference back, aren't valued much more than Memphis. So you have this pot where everybody seems to be about the same. And, of course, what everyone would also like is the possibility to be able to compete for a championship, have enough schools to be a part of the college football playoff, and be looked at as among the 4 conferences, Big Ten. That's not going to happen. SEC is not going to happen. And no matter what anyone may think, it's not any better, or no, it's no close to being better than the ACC and or the Big 12. As of now, and it doesn't seem like that will change no matter what happens or who is added, even with win-loss records or whatever in the future.
Yeah, that's just not reality. I saw a random, I don't know if it was a Wazoo or Oregon State or maybe a new Pac-12 fan that was trying to say because they are probably going to add Gonzaga, which is not like Gonzaga came out in full force last night denying Brett McMurphy's report. Brett McMurphy, who we know very well, friend of the show, is sticking by his report. So he, that looks like it's probably going to happen, but everybody's kind of like, no, that's not. So if you were to assume that they're in the Pac-12, I've seen Pac-12 fans try to say that it'd be like a better basketball conference than the Big 12. You're not dealing with people that are living in reality if they're saying things like that. You're just I understand COPE, but it's just not even close. I mean, look at the TV dollars. Like, that's all you have to look at is the TV dollars. Theirs is going to be triple in the Big 12 and certainly the ACC than whatever the Pac might get, which they don't even know what they might get yet. So this is not going to be a Power 5 again. It's just not. It's just not. And so I don't know what that means as far as playoff access and things like that, but there were 2 very funny comments I saw, and it sucks to be on the receiving end of this, but it's part of the deal. There was an Oregon State fan who was responding to this graphic that was put together by Beaver Swag, I guess a big Oregon State fan, and put together this graphic that had the Pac-7, and it had the logos of the 7. And this account, Beaver Sheets, responds to this Pac-7 logo, a gun would be faster. So I thought that was funny because not everybody is like just drinking the Kool-Aid and like the Pac is back and this is great. There's a lot of Oregon State fans and Washington State fans are like, this is not what we were hoping for with all this war chest money and all these studios and things like that. It wasn't to basically recreate a hybrid Pac Mountain West type of monster. And Cyclone Larry, who you guys know very well, also had a tweet last night when a lot of this was going on that said, just bleeping merge, you idiots, at the Pac-12 and Mountain West.
I saw that, yeah.
But obviously, one's wanting to survive and the other one looking to get killed off. So
how surprising. Conferences trying to kill off others.
It's a lot of palace intrigue, obviously, going on here between the conferences, and this is a mess. I think the funniest thing to me is that the Pac-12 does think that, like, by doing this, that they can just come in and say that they are something now. I'll liken it to giving yourself a nickname. Like if Emory came in tomorrow and was like, no, you don't call me Emory, you call me Bronco. We'd be like, shut up. We're not calling you Bronco. Like that's not going to happen. They can't just make the Pac-12 again. They're like, hey, we're the same. You know what's the same? Utah State and USC. Same thing.
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
I think that's just cope, and that could always be on the other side of the anonymity of social media. Like somebody just doesn't know any better, but I've seen a lot of trying to rationalize and pretend like this is the level of what it was, and it's just not even anywhere close.
Let's go back to what Dan Watkins said. This is not about wins and losses, whether Memphis beat Florida State or somebody else beat, like his Navy just beat Memphis. This is all to generate television dollars, no different than what happened with Texas OU and what happened with the Big 12 or Pac-12 schools going to the Big 10 or Pac-12 schools going to the, obviously, Big 12, and then schools going to the ACC. This is not about who you think might be better in football here and there. And I just saw the comment in a second ago from, who was it? D'Angelo. If the Pac had added Memphis, Tulane, USF, and UTSA, they would be better than the Big 12.
No, they wouldn't.
I have respect for every one of those programs. We've had guests on from each of those programs, but no, they wouldn't. And that is your opinion. You can have it, but no, they wouldn't. If that was the case, those schools would be a part of the Big 12 when they were making some of the moves. And in some cases, some of them just weren't ready when that opportunity came. And I'm looking at Memphis. Now, here's a note from Heather Dinich. Multiple, at least a half a dozen sources, continue to tell me what the Pac-12 is doing, still trying to do, doesn't change the perception that they are building a G5 level league when it comes to the college football revenue distribution. Let's not forget, no matter how much you may like and love those conferences or the teams in them, there's one or two places. It's the Big Ten and the SEC who make the decisions on who's going to be a part of the revenue distribution. Yes, the ACC and Big 12 too, but they're not going to give up any of their money for a league that's just been kind of thrown together, with all due respect to who might end up being a part of either the Pac-12 or what is now the Mountain West Conference.
When it comes to giving out money, there's no emotions involved here. Like Greg Sankey is not going to go, you know what, we're making 10 times more than everybody, but we feel sorry for the Pac, so we're going to go give them like $20 million. That's not how that works. And I would just simply say this, and it could very well be trolling. Like I said a moment ago, the Pac's on the level of the Big 12 or whatever. Like, again, that's silly, and you need to look no further than the fact that the two founding members of this Pac 2.0, the Big 12 didn't want them.
Yeah.
They wanted a bunch of their buddies last year, but they didn't want those two, despite having a full year and multiple opportunities to add them. They never chose to. And, maybe down the line, 10 years from now, that happens or something. But the founding structure of this league was turned away by the Big 12, by the ACC. So to say that when they went and added a bunch of teams from the Mountain West, that they're suddenly like, you're drinking copium, and I understand it and not trying to knock it or anything. But I think just to say that you're either trolling or it's just, I don't know what it is, because it's not reality. But I'm looking to the future for that conference as being a bright and positive one, and one where they can make some moves and make it really interesting. But I just think this idea of catching up or whatever is not realistic right now, much the way that the Big 12 is not going to catch up to the SEC in terms of payouts. Like, let's not be silly and pretend and pump hot air to people and act like that's realistically happening. It's not. So much in that same way, this league is not going to be on the level of those other four, and will therefore not have that playoff consideration or the money that follows that. And yeah, we don't even know what the money looks like right now. It wasn't enough to lure any of the American teams who all decided to stay together. So yeah, there's a lot still to be sorted out there, but I think it's been very interesting to see the Pac make these moves and try to play this chess game. And now with a lawsuit today, you've got basically a stare down between two conferences, and you wonder, depending on how that goes, if both of them even survive past this, in the case of the Mountain West, if they're not able to get their side of things here.
From Luis, love your show. Question, why didn't the Pac-12 leftovers do this last year when they could have kept Cal, Stanford, plus probably added SMU and any of Tulane, Memphis, and UTSA?
I don't think Cal and Stanford wanted to be in a conference with Oregon State and Washington State anymore.
And with all due respect, again, we always say this is just being reality. They didn't want to be a part of any kind of conference that had
They didn't want the Big 12.
Boise State or...
They didn't want 99% of the Big 12. They wanted Texas and Oklahoma, and if you got those, they wanted maybe an Oklahoma State or something, but they were very much in their academic clouds and better-than-you clouds, and there was only certain teams they felt were worthy, and that was a part of what created that tension with the Big 12 and Pac-12 that lasted for years and then bubbled up into what all happened last year. So
yep.
Read that question again.
The question was, why didn't the Pac-12 leftovers, that would be Oregon State, Washington State, do this last year when they could have kept Cal, Stanford, plus added the possibility of SMU, Tulane, Memphis, or UTSA?
Well, because at this point last year, this had already all happened. They got left, and they were the only two left standing because when everybody started to get their life rafts, Colorado, right, made the first move.
Yep, and then the other three on one Friday morning back in the summer.
The other three, four corners.
I think he's talking about after that.
Because they had already committed to the ACC. So they were already gone.
Paul, when did Cal Stanford make the decision to the ACC?
I mean, pretty much
right in that same time.
Right in the same time period.
Okay.
So you basically were left with Oregon State, Washington State, and this quote-unquote war chest, and you had that lawsuit going on as well, remember, to try and figure that out, which lasted into the fall, and I forget when that finally got settled in favor of the Cougs and the Beavers, but that also then happened, and so that was the big key, was like, do they win this lawsuit and get this war chest? And that's what they were all caught up in, was just trying to get the Pac assets and win that so that they could then use those to get into the Big 12 or the ACC, or use those to do what they're doing right now and use all that money to go and create a new league, basically. So they didn't have the option that you're suggesting because everybody kind of grabbed their life rafts, including Stanford and Cal, and that left those two just without a home, basically.
UW fan Jim, I will get roasted in here, and there's been a couple of others who have said this, but Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State would compete with everyone save maybe Utah in the Big 12. This is, once again, it's not about how teams might play wins and losses head-to-head. It's about what brings in the money, which it kind of drives me crazy, that too. Like, who's pretty good? Who should be a part of this? And they do still have their opportunities because go be pretty good, go 11-1 or 12-0, whatever you could possibly be. It's not about that. It's not about that. There are teams inside the Big 12 who could beat teams in the Big 10, who could beat teams in the SEC, but they're not a part of those conferences for a reason. And we have respect for everybody who's floating out there or is on a life raft, but that's not how this works.
It is not about current performance on the field. If it was about current performance on the field, then
Boise would have been in the Pac like 10 years ago or something, yeah.
Texas would not have been offered by the SEC when they were. They were just coming off one of the worst decades in their history, right?
That's probably a bad example because they're like the king money, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But like, I'm saying performance on the field.
Yeah,
So it's exactly the example because the money of it is what makes it, you ignore all the rest of it. So if it's performance on the field, then you would have had 10 teams before Texas just because you're like, well, the last decade, Texas is really
about wins and losses. Yeah.
When it's a performance on the field
not what it's
recently, it's not. It's not at all. So Texas couldn't just call it the SEC and be like, hey, we got a bunch of money, we got to come. And like, look, we like the money, but we're about quality here. And you guys have sucked for 10 years. And we don't have faith that you're going to be good again. Now, that turned out not to be true in any regard. They're the number one team in the country, 1 year into the conference already, and they were set up to go. But it's not about that. It's about television markets. It's about who hate watches you. It's about who, like, you get eyeballs no matter if people love you or hate you. It's about that. That's what it's about. And
like somebody who brought up Rice and Texas State, because they wanted the state of Texas. That's not – Rice has 5,000 people who go to their games. It's about eyeballs.
Yeah.
Let's remember why all this started. It's about money, who can generate more TV revenue, and that's exactly what it's about. There's we'll take you two just because you were 10-2 last year.
And look, Stanford and Cal, if not for FSU and Clemson being mad and everybody knowing that they were mad – last year too, Like, if everything was copacetic in the ACC, they would have had no real motivation to add them either because, they weren't worried about losing teams and falling below their threshold for their ESPN contract. So, yeah, things all kind of worked out for Cal and Stanford that they got to be in a Power 4 conference, and they had the good grace of Notre Dame to say, hey, you guys should take them. And the ACC, even though they're not a full member in football, said, okay, Notre Dame, we'll take them.
By the way, one note to close it out, and we'll get back into this too. We're not done with it, but we do have Brett McMurphy who could else kind of tie a bow on this, at least for where it is now. So Texas goes into the SEC, right? Were they ever 38.5-point favorites against anybody in the last 10 years in the Big 12?
I don't feel like I ever watched lines all that closely, but now it's like everybody
38.5-point favorites against Mississippi State, and I get it. But that's amazing.
No, for a conference game, that's ridiculous, and it totally blows up the whole.
And Paxton gave me that note.
Part of it is that Texas is really, really good, and some may believe, perhaps rightfully, we'll see. It's the first month of the season, but they look really good, and some believe that they may be the best team in the entire country. They certainly appear to look in that conversation. They look like they deserve to be in that conversation, having performed the way that they have with two different quarterbacks now. But I think that also speaks to not only how good they are, but where Mississippi State is. But even then, 38.5-point favorite in the SEC is like, spare me the whole, it means more. Like, I know that's not what it means, but like, spare me the whole, like, everybody's a juggernaut and everybody's a murderer's row, except for Vanderbilt. It's like, no, except for Vanderbilt, except for Mississippi State, except for, because
sometimes it's South Carolina or whoever.
Right, but
now it could
that's
be
absurd.
Auburn.
That's absurd.
It's different than that, but they all have been protected because they were part of pretty much the original when all the conference was put together. And there have been teams in the Big Ten who they could have left behind. There are teams in the Big 12 that, in fact, when it was the Southwest Conference, they were left behind. Some of them came back, like Houston, TCU, to be back a part of the conference.
That seems to me like it would have been peak Alabama against Vandy at its lowest, like would have been a 38.5-point spread. But to see that for Texas, Mississippi State is like, geez Louise, that's pretty insane. Now, granted, Mississippi State just lost Blake Shapen, so.
Yeah, no, but 40 points?
No, I know.
They're probably through 10 points on it, though.
It's. I'm going to go back and look at the other odds of games that are coming up this week, and not many are ever really above 10, 14, 17 points, but we'll do that. Thanks to Paxton for showing me that. When we come back, and we appreciate all of your feedback, and we try to answer as many questions. Carla asked about whether Sacramento State and somebody else would add value to the Pac-12. It all depends on what they feel like they can get out of it and what it would lead to when it comes to any kind of a TV deal that right now is hypothetical. The AAC is not hypothetical. The Mountain West has their deal too, although that one is up for grabs. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ. He is next, and this is 365 Sports. I don't know why. I think I'm still kind of on this like jet fumes or I just kind of jet lag from the trip, although Central Standard Time in Lincoln. I woke up in the middle of the night last night. I was like, oh, my God, my teeth are gone. They're not. Some of them might be. But I was like, it scared the hell out of me, like what's going on now? And I haven't had that in a long, long, long time, and there's no need for me to have that because my dental work is in such good spot because of Dr. Steve Childress. Back when I saw him during COVID, walked through the front door and I said, just do what you need to do, or just be honest with me of what is going to be gone. What do we need to do here? And slowly and surely and methodically, Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, with 5 other great dentists, they've done a lot of work on me. Still work to be done, and I know that. And I also know what I can or shouldn't be doing when it comes to sweets. Occasionally can have those, but I need to be careful with them. Dr. Steve Childress, it was True Serum. It was like scared straight. And I have been through a lot to get to where I am now when it comes to my dental work. He is fantastic. I appreciate him. He'll text me occasionally just to stay in touch. How many others do that? He does. Dr. Steve Childress, Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
It's Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive off in the new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland with $13,000 off, or the 2024 Jeep Gladiator Sport with a huge 18% off MSRP. Need more options? How about a new Jeep Compass, $9,000 off, or a stunning Wagoneer L with $8,300 dealer discount. Plus, all models come with 0% financing for 36 months. Get your adventure started today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Brett McMurphy, tight end, as possible as anyone in America when it comes to college football news and notes. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ, joins us. Our go-to guy. Thanks for your time. And I know sometimes you get annoyed with a lot of this realignment. We also know it scratches an itch of thousands and millions of fans. So, in your opinion, now there's a lawsuit. What is next that might happen in your opinion, or what will happen?
What everyone's waiting on now is to see what UNLV does. They're deciding whether to remain in the Mountain West or go to the Pac-12. As we're speaking right this second, it literally could change before I'm off the air with you. But right now, the Mountain West has 7 football playing members, and the Pac-12 has 7 football playing members in 2026. So the key here is UNLV. If they decide to join the Pac-12, that gets the Pac-12 to the minimum number of 8 FBS members, which you need to be a part of the FBS level and the college football playoff and all those sort of things. And that would drop the Mountain West to 6. So then the Mountain West would have to find 2 more schools. If they remain in the Mountain West, then both the Mountain West and the Pac-12 still have to go out and find another member. Also, if UNLV goes to the Pac-12, Smokey, don't be surprised if Air Force ends up in the American. If UNLV leaves to go to the Pac-12. And then you're looking at the Mountain West down to 5 schools. Can they find 3 more members? Would they dissolve? Would they collapse? That's something, really to keep your eye on. And that's going to be the next domino one way or another, potentially today, certainly by the end of this week at the latest.
Brett, what are without knowing the financials of the Pac-12, why is the potential of the new Pac-12 better than the certainty of the Mountain West?
Depends on who you talk to. I think some people would say it is. Some people would say it isn't. You know, that's a great question, and that's why the four schools from the American Conference, Memphis, Tulane, USF, and UTSA, who had offers to go to the Pac-12, decided to stay in the American, because what the Pac-12 is offering is projected numbers, projected media rights. They don't have a media rights contract to present that. It's like if I said, hey, I want to hire you guys, I want to take you guys off your show, I want to bring you onto my show, and here's projected what you're going to make. And you'd be like, okay, that's great. And then you show up for work the first day, and then I'm like, okay, here's your contract, and it's 1/3 of what I promised you. You're not going to be too happy. So nobody's going to make this move because they don't have anything in writing specifically how much they're going to make. It's all projections on what they think they can get in a new contract. And also, I think this, I'm sure you guys agree, take the Pac-12 name off of the conference, and all that is another version of the Mountain West. Why would that be more valuable than the current Mountain West? And certainly, why would it be more valuable than the American? I don't think it is. I think they're all the same. There's reasons why these guys aren't in power conferences. No offense to those guys. And certainly, you can shuffle around all those schools all you want. None of the schools bring a great deal of value to any of the other Group of Five conferences. So it's, I love bad analogies. It's basically they're shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic and figuring what group they want to be with. Because I don't think it really matters. But at the end of the day, it's about survival. They got to get the 8 football members to stay alive, and that's what they're fighting to do.
Brett, I know there was the report you had on Gonzaga. There were others that, refuted that, said that's not happening. I know that the magic's all in the wording. There's conversations going on behind the scenes. So where do we just sit from your perspective when it comes to Gonzaga and any Pac-12 possibilities?
Yeah, so I reported yesterday that Gonzaga is going to the Pac-12. What I didn't specify was when they were going to the Pac-12. You guys know me. I'm not going to throw something against the wall. I'm very confident in the individuals I talk to, the sources that I have. And you're right. Everybody else on the face of the earth said that I'm an idiot and that I'm wrong. So, choose your horse. We'll see what happens. Ultimately, I'm confident based on what I was told by the people that told me, Gonzaga will end up in the Pac-12. Are they there today? No. Are they there tomorrow? No. But they will be there. But we have to wait and see how that plays out. Certainly the Pac-12 is hoping to bring UNLV on board because they want to not only be, credible in football, but that would also be a huge boost to their basketball product if you've got the likes of San Diego State, UNLV, and a Gonzaga in your basketball conference. And why you're probably saying, why would Gonzaga want to go to that league? Well, as much as we're talking about how much the TV media deal would be worth, or simply we don't know, it would be worth a lot more than whatever Gonzaga is currently getting out of the West Coast Conference. And so they would be able to move, they don't have football, so they would move all their sports to the whatever Pac-12 form they will have in the future.
What do you think about it? What Pernetti, did? How quickly the American Conference said, "Wait a minute, let's shut this door," and everybody committed to stay with them.
Yeah, that's a big win for them because if they would have lost those 3, or 4 potentially, what are they left with? And then where are they going to go to fill in those spots? Teams from Conference USA, maybe some teams from the Sun Belt. So no, that was very impressive by Tim Pernetti, rookie commissioner with the American, to keep all those guys on board. Ultimately, I think the schools in the American, at first, again, it's the Pac-12 name that's drawing everybody to that league. But if you it's like the blind resumes for the NCAA tournament. take the names off and just look at the facts and the information, it's like, okay, here are the teams we're going to be paired with. They're basically Mountain West schools, nothing against the Mountain West. And also, you can't tell me exactly how much money I'm going to make in my new media rights deal there. And you may not be willing to pay my exit fee to leave the American. So why, again, am I changing from the American to the Pac-12? So, yeah, I think once they looked at simply the black and white numbers on everything, it was pretty obvious that they were better off staying where they're at and not making the move, because they would be just, they'd be changing houses in the same neighborhood, except they've got a lot more travel and moving expenses involved.
Brett, do you have any kind of idea what kind of number overall the Pac is looking at once they get to 8 past it?
The number that they're projecting is somewhere between 10 and 15 million, probably around 12 million. That's what they're projecting. The problem is the Mountain West schools are worth 5 million in the Mountain West. So why are they now going to be worth double or triple that by joining forces with Oregon State and Washington State? That's what doesn't make sense for anybody that's involved in this. And now you've got the uncertainty of the Mountain West. You've got the Pac-12 suing the Mountain West over these coaching fees, which I want to go down a rabbit hole. It's so crazy that these schools signed this contract less than a year ago. Maybe it was a year ago, 15 months, I don't know. And now they're claiming that this, they were forced to sign it. This is invalid. So these schools that are joining the Pac-12 are trying to get out of paying $55 million in a scheduling agreement that everybody in the conference signed a year ago. So we have to see how that plays out. But certainly if the Mountain West is able to win that lawsuit or recoup the fees, whatever's left in the Mountain West, they're going to have, $155 million, I believe it is, to divide up among whatever schools are left behind. So certainly that would make the Mountain West attractive for UNLV and Air Force to stay on board. But again, I've been told that there's a lot of donors at UNLV that are mesmerized by that Pac-12 brand, that Pac-12 name, and they want to make the move. So ultimately, we'll see who wins out in Vegas.
Brett, I remember this time last year when all of the dust was finally starting to settle on the Pac and the ACC and the Big 12 and everything that was going on there. When we started to look forward, the word consolidation was brought up quite a bit, like that was going to be the next kind of thing. And obviously Florida State has taken most of the headlines over the last year, but is some of this what's going on, not necessarily in the biggest conferences, but is this the consolidation that maybe people were referring to?
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. And again, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think, well, if the Pac-12 gets up to back to 8 members again, then they're going to be one of the power conferences. No, that's gone. Goodbye. That's never going to happen again. We've gone from 6 power conference leagues when the Big East was around to 5, and then the Pac-12 went away, and now we're down to 4. The commissioners of the 4 power conferences are not going to say, oh, hey, Pac-12, you know what? We feel bad. You used to be a power conference, and now you've got your membership back up. So now we're gonna divide up all our money by 5 instead of by 4. That ain't happening. So yeah, I think the consolidation continues to happen, whether it's fewer number of power conferences or whether it's fewer group of 5 or non-power conferences. And I think this continues until we get to the end game, which I don't know what that's going to be, but it's the point where we may just have 2 power conferences, and then whatever else in whatever configuration, college athletics ends up in somewhere down the road.
So why would the Pac? I mean, I'm still getting confused about why they just wouldn't merge.
So am I.
I mean, like
money.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
It's all money. No, you're absolutely right. That's a valid question. You basically have 16 schools out there, and you could have merged them together. But the problem is you've got 2 different groups of schools, and it's not like the NFL where you've got the AFC and the NFC. it's like you've got the NBA trying to merge with the NFL. You've got two different groups that have their own, that want to lead or it to be their conference. So the Pac-12 doesn't want to lose their name. So they don't want to join up with the Mountain West, because then, technically they could lose some of the revenue they get from the former Pac-12 schools as far as NCAA tournament units, college football playoff money, all those different things. The Mountain West, if they go and, well, the Pac-12 never wanted all the Mountain West schools, so that's why they didn't merge. And then the Pac-12 didn't want to merge with the Mountain West, because then they would have lost all their college football playoff revenue and NCAA basketball units. But you're right. I mean, if they could have figured out a way to do it where both conferences were made full and they could agree on who would, can't have two commissioners for one league, and you figure out those sort of things, I think that would have been the best scenario. I agree with you. But like everything else in college football, what's best for the Pac-12 may not be best for the Mountain West. What's best for the Big Ten may not be what's best for the Big 12. And the conferences do not work together. They do what's best for their own individual conferences, and I understand that. They have to answer to their president. But that's why they didn't get this thing figured out. And now because of that, both the futures of both conferences are literally at risk, and dependent on getting to 8 football schools. And, their options right now all smell like bad fish.
Brett, on the field, because there's that going on as well. We all expected after the realignment of last year that the Big 12 would be a really interesting and entertaining conference, and I think so far we've definitely seen that come to fruition. You had Baylor's loss to Colorado, which was at the top of all the headlines last week. You got Oklahoma State losing in Stillwater to Utah, benching Bowman, bringing him back. You have BYU blowing out Kansas State in Provo. Just what stood out to you maybe from what you've seen from this league so far, and just what do you think as we get conference play fully underway?
Well, I thought it was going to be chaos, and it's pretty much started out that way. I never could have imagined, though, that I'm an Oklahoma State alum, but I never could have imagined that without Cam Rising, Utah would be able to beat Oklahoma State, and I never would have imagined that Oklahoma State's offense and defense has not looked very good. I mean, Ollie Gordon has not looked anything like last year. That's been a surprise. I picked Utah to win the league. They still look good. Certainly they need Rising back at some point. UCF and Iowa State, which were, 2 of the 8 teams I said had a chance to win it, they look in good position. I was stunned Kansas State got rolled by BYU. I didn't think BYU I didn't think BYU gets a bowl. And now, I've got them in my AP top 25 ballot. So I just think this is going to be a year-long thing. There's going to be incredible games, crazy finishes. Sorry, too soon, Baylor fans. Oh. And it's not going to stop. And again, that's why when I talked to you guys earlier in the year, I think I'm afraid that the Big 12 doesn't get a runner-up in the playoff, because I think that runner-up is going to have 2, 3, maybe 4 losses, and that's simply not going to put him in the top 12. But everything surprised me, but then again, nothing really surprises me with this league, because you saw the first game out of the gate 2 weeks ago. UCF wins by 1 because TCU misses a last-second field goal. I think that was just kind of a preview of what to expect every week. And I think every week we're going to have, whether it's the Hail Mary with Colorado, where it's the TCU missing a last-second field goal, the Oklahoma State's down 19 with 4 minutes to go, and they've got an onside kick to try to tie it. I mean, I think that's going to be the norm instead of the exception. There's all these crazy, crazy finishes, which will be great for TV viewerships, but it'll be bad for the for the coaches and these impending ulcers that they're going to have.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a league of parity, and I agree with you. It's going to be really tough to foresee where they get a second playoff team just because, like you said, that team's likely to have 3 or 4 losses perhaps. You touched on it a little bit, but let's go ahead and pull the scab all the way off. What were your thoughts as you watched the end of Colorado-Baylor last week?
I actually didn't see it live,
okay.
So I did see the I guess they're called lowlights around Waco. Yeah, I mean, there's so many games like that you're like, you know, you look back and it coulda, woulda, shoulda won the game, and you didn't. And you know that could, you know, is that a turning point in the season for Colorado and or Baylor? I don't know. I mean, you look at Baylor the rest of the way, and they're either a single-digit favorite or single-digit underdog in the remaining schedule, except for at Iowa State. They'll be over double-digit underdog. So literally, you know, Baylor sitting there at 2-2, they could end up legitimately. They could end up anywhere between 8-4 and 4-8. And it's going to come down to these last-minute decisions, these last-minute plays. Can you convert? Can you avoid the turnover? You know, a million different things. And that's what makes this league so tough is there are no layups. There are no gimmies where you just kind of like, okay, this week, you know, Baylor had its gimme, and that was in the opener against Tarleton State. And after that, every week's going to be a battle. How do you come back off an emotional game like that? If I'm Baylor, I think they're actually in a good position. Or getting BYU off a huge upset. You would think BYU may come in flat off this game. The question is, how does Baylor get up off the mat after such a disappointing loss at Colorado? You know, I think this is a huge, huge game for Baylor because if they lose this, realistically, probably not going to win at Iowa State. And then you're 2-4 going into the break with, you know, the back half of the schedule, hoping to finish 4-2 and get to a bowl game.
Brett, and thank you. I know you're busy. In fact, has anything changed? Has anyone left? Has anyone changed their mind since you came on with us about 20 minutes ago?
Well, my phone hadn't blown up, so I think we're safe. But
we're good.
Yeah, give it another 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. You do a great job. You know that. We know that. And others who follow you know that too. So we appreciate it very much. Ed Corona, 365, acting like the Monty Show. Ed Corona making a comment about Brett and adding I guess you could say, a note to his name. Ed Corona, we will nuke you. We take anyone's opinion until you get personal with that person. You can call us whatever you want. The reason this show has grown is because we do not throw stuff against the wall and hope that it sticks. We're not that kind of show. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. But thank you very much for your opinion and also being a part of what is a very large audience that we have right now on 365 Sports. Vlad Kristomanov, Memphis is basically saying that Memphis is going to change their mind because the consultants will tell them what to do. Memphis has already released a statement. Yes, you're right. We saw UNLV release a statement. We've seen others release a statement. We've seen the Pac-12 release statement after statement after statement, and they eventually imploded. The reason the AAC schools decided not to jump to the Pac-12 is simple. They don't have any concrete details of what revenue they will be given. And in the AAC, they have all of that. It's in a vault. It's there, real numbers. And what has gotten the Pac-12, even when it was 12, in trouble, is the fact they always thought they could get more than they were worth. Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
No,
okay.
yeah. The fact that thought that they were worth $50+ million, even though they were told plenty of times in plenty of different ways that probably wasn't all that realistic, and surged ahead regardless, as though all of the outside noise was just PR campaigns or some weird desire to randomly kill off the Pac-12. And it was like, no, it's just the reality that you've got a contract coming up that you don't have like any ink anywhere close by to put on that thing right now, and the details are very fuzzy, but you're charging ahead and telling people there's not a problem. And well, when it all boiled down to it, all that outside noise was more accurate than the statements coming from the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So, whatever. But Not trying to dunk on that. That was easy enough to do a year ago. But, yeah, I mean, that's really all it boils down to. And there's a lot of fans out there with a lot of interest in where all this lands. And, I think that's why you see some of the stranger, not so accurate takes about like somebody's status and, well, we were 12-1 last year, we should deserve a spot. And it's like, that's not what this is about.
If that was the case, South Dakota State, which has been mentioned as a possibility of now joining a different conference, would be in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and, with Memphis, the Big 12 has had multiple opportunities over the years. They've had multiple look-ins at Memphis, for example, and they've never chosen to go that route. And that's, the case for various other schools as well. So, yeah, it's nothing personal. It's just business. And, the business says that this new pack is, now going to go into the courtroom against the Mountain West. We'll see who emerges from that. But that this new pack is not going to be the best case scenario that you hoped for if you were a Washington State or Oregon State fan. Still could be a very interesting conference. But, yeah, the money and I don't think the attention is simply going to be there to put it on a level of where it is with the other four in terms of the amount of sway that they have. And not pretending like the Big 12 or the ACC or the SEC or the Big 10 either, but they still are autonomous in that they have some say in how things work, even if it's not the majority say. And that's something that, as well as playoff access, is not going to be afforded to whatever the pack looks like on the other side of this. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, and by the way, Paula just asked, did she miss anything?
No, just kicking it.
No, just 40, 55 minutes of kind of updating you, but thanks for joining us along with everybody else that's a part of what it's like. And Kyle Visser, funny how realignment can fill up the room like no other topic. Yes, you're exactly right. Sometimes we maybe don't scratch that itch as much. Sometimes people wish we did it every day for 3 hours. Sometimes there's news and we should. And right now it's kind of an intriguing time. In the end, who's more powerful? UNLV in college football realignment. Right now, this second, who's more powerful? UNLV, Air Force, or Alabama?
Alabama's not trying to realign.
No, I know. But UNLV and Air Force are like the center of the realignment future universe, at least at this particular time.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to do there, Alabama. It really doesn't add much to that question there because it's not really involved. But I know what you're saying there, and I guess it depends on your perspective because there's a big part of this universe that a large portion of the college football fandom do not care about. So in terms of just the realignment universe, though, yeah, like nobody holds more sway right now than a UNLV or an Air Force because their decisions are going to tip this Jenga pile potentially one way or the other. Either keep one intact or pull that last brick that knocks it down a few pegs, if not shatters it. So, very interesting decisions to come, and I would imagine decisions that are going to happen in a matter of minutes, hours, like Brett was referring to, and certainly within the next couple of days, you would think, certainly by the end of the week. So they've got big decisions to make, and the decisions that those two make in particular are going to take this in a different direction potentially, and one where the Pac-12 is suddenly scrambling for another school, or the Mountain West is in an S Creek with no paddle. We'll see though. But it's interesting stuff, especially with this lawsuit today.
Here's a friction hitch: pay your way or evaporate. And a lot of teams and programs and universities continue to do that, and you wonder how much longer they can. And those who are going to get the big pie of the college football playoff revenue are in pretty good shape. Roger the Dodger, thank you. Pac-12 name has to be worth $12 million. But that's still 1/3, at least 1/3, maybe 1/4 in a way, based on all the revenue that the others will receive. But $12 million is a hell of a lot better than if you're getting $5 million.
Yeah, actually, it wouldn't be that because it would be split amongst 8 or so teams. So that's like $1 million per Pac-12 team if you're talking about $12 million. So they've got that. They've got about
$12 million per school is what I think he's saying.
Maybe.
No, you're right, because there's 2 schools.
Yeah,
I
don't know about
that.
Right now, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the actual TV figures look like. It doesn't sound like the Pac even knows what the TV figures are, hence why the American is staying together and why maybe others were hesitant to make that move originally. But, yeah, there's some cachet with that name, and I don't know how valuable it is really when, the reason why that name was so big was because of schools that are no longer there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I get where you're coming from. And obviously there was some value, which is why Washington State and Oregon State fought so hard to keep it and all that came with it and is trying to rebuild it right now.
Well, great stuff from Brett. And by the time we come back with our next segment, it might change, like he said, before the end of his 25 minutes with us. We appreciate that. For those who want and you live in the Central Texas area, 365 Sports Tonight every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. Emery Winter puts together the 4 best segments, interviews or discussion, and puts that up on the show that runs at 10:30. Ricky Thompson, who was on the sideline at the end of that Colorado win against Baylor and Boulder, his thoughts on that. Plus, later in the show, we'll hear from Josh Furlong. He covers Utah, and maybe his thoughts about Utah State bolting because he works for KSL in Salt Lake City and that story. Much more to get to. This is 365 Sports.
Baylor alumni.
Baylor alumni fan engagement. Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe, they run this. And, oh, by the way, they have a home game coming up on Saturday, so they've got a lot that they'll be doing leading up to the event, including what is game day. Their game day tailgate atmosphere is really, really, really good. And if you want information on that, you get on BaylorAlumni.edu, and you can find that. Also, they are setting up special events coming up down the road when it comes to Baylor alumni being able to go to various events. Like, for example, every year they have a Rangers or Baylor night with the Rangers. That season for them has been over for quite some time, but it's about to be, of course, completely over with the schedule running out. They've had one in Houston with the Astros. They have one with the Houston Dynamo, the soccer team. That also is something they set up. But if you want to watch Baylor and BYU and you're outside and you're not coming to the game in Waco, let's say you're in Washington, D.C., in St. Louis, Missouri, Phoenix, Arizona, wherever you are, and you want to set one up and make sure you get the word out, the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement Department can help you do that by contacting Doug Furch or Paul Thorpe at the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement Department.
Score big savings at the Kickoff the Savings event at Richard Carr Buick, a 2024 Car and Driver Magazine Editor's Choice. The all-new Buick Envista starts at only $23,990. Or make the winning drive in a 2024 Buick Encore GX SUV and save $4,000 for non-GM car owners. Or save $1,000 on 2024 Buick Envisions in stock. Qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. Score your deal at the Kickoff the Savings event going on now at Richard Carr Buick.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Ricky Thompson, Baylor radio sideline analyst, former receiver with the Bears, and also NFL wide receiver with Washington, joins us on 365 Sports. Ricky, where were you on the moment Shedeur found Wester in the end zone on the bullet of a pass for the what eventually was the game-tying touchdown?
Well, it was pretty clear I wasn't in the secondary playing defense.
Oh, my God.
I was on the far sideline, Baylor sideline, on about probably 15-yard line, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when he released the ball, generally when you see Hail Mary, there's a lot of air under it, and he didn't put any air under that one. That was a rocket, and I'm thinking at that angle, no way this ball gets completed because there's going to be too many people down there. But we had a guy slip. I'm not sure where the rest of the coverage was. Generally, you've got 2 or 3 guys at any point where a ball's coming down on a Hail Mary type situation. And I thought their guy made a really nice play on it. It was wet. Caden slipped, and he made a really good catch of coming around Caden from the backside. If you watch that thing from the end zone view, that ball is on the right side of Caden, and the receiver went all the way around him, came back, and went to the ground and made that catch. So good job of getting rid of the ball, and a really good catch by the receiver, and a gut punch for the Bears.
Ricky, how do they go about emotionally picking themselves up off the mat? Because they had that game won and dead to rights, and this is something that has happened a few times over the last couple years. It gave me memories of the TCU game a couple years ago, where TCU calmly walked out onto the field with the clock running and kicked a game-winning field goal. It's just these things keep on kind of happening.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and because it's the most recent, I think this was, to me, more gut-wrenching than the TCU game. I mean, that was a really, really good football team in TCU that you had on the ropes, 28-26. I'm not saying Colorado's not good. I think they've got some talent. But that was a game that I thought really during the game, for some reason, I was never fearful of losing that one. Once the game was underway and I saw the way our defensive line was playing, the pressure they were putting on Sanders, I really thought we'd figure out a way to win that game, and that was all the way down to 2 seconds to go, to tell you the truth. But, I don't know what the answer is, but it's football, and you've got another game next week, and you've seen teams do it time and time again, where it looks like they're just down and out for the count, and they come back and win a big ball game. But I think this game now with BYU is very critical, because you do not want to go to 2-3 with a road trip to Iowa State the next week. So this is a very critical game for this team. It's at home, and frankly, it's just one that they need to go out and win.
Yeah, Ricky, I thought the game plan actually for like 99% of the game was pretty great, right? Like the stuff they were making Shedeur like have to decide, and the pressure they were bringing, and just I don't know. Like you obviously would have wanted more points, but it seemed like they had the perfect formula. That's the damnedest thing of this whole loss in Boulder.
Yeah, Craig. I mean, tell me, any of you guys, if I would have told you before the game started 8 sacks, would you have had any thought of them winning that game?
No.
Absolutely not. And I think on that end, we did what we needed to do. A couple of big plays they had that really hurt us. Travis Hunter's for real. That dude's really good. And we basically contained him. And he still had 7 catches. But the week before, he had 13. So defensively, other than that last play, I thought we played a pretty good football game against a really good offense. If you go back to a couple of plays offensively, I think we get the go-ahead touchdown, sack Sanders twice, last time at the 4. They punt, we return it to the 25. 1st and 10 at the Colorado 25, and you come away with zip.
Mm-hmm.
That's a killer. And then go back, the game's 24-10. Ashton Hawkins runs a little out and up out of the slot. He is wide open. And I thought Sawyer made a really good throw off the fingertips, catch that ball, and it's to the house. There is nobody out there. They've blown the coverage, good route. You can just go back play after play like that, if this, if that, and you win the game.
And they did, and yet again they didn't. How much you mentioned a gut punt? This is the more recent loss. Is this in the conversation with UNLV?
No. You know the one I go back to, Smoak?
Michigan State.
It's the Cotton Bowl.
Yep.
Because and here's the reason that UNLV game was really one play, one stupid play that cost us that game. Cotton Bowl, you had 7 or 8 plays that had to happen for Michigan State to win that game. All those 7 plays had to go that way. A block in the back on an interception return for a touchdown, 10 yards behind the play. Miss a chip shot field goal after an offensive face mask on the 1. Just thing after thing. And this game in Colorado, just add them all up. I mentioned a couple of drop pass that I thought was going to be a touchdown to Ashton Hawkins. 1st and 10 at the 25, you don't get points. Just play after play that I think went the other way that we didn't make. So to me, those are the 2 I compared because there were multiple plays that if you make any one of those, you win the game.
Ricky, this week they're playing a team that is feeling confident. Everything's working for BYU. They just throttled Kansas State. They beat a good SMU team earlier this year. They're making teams kind of muddy the waters and play the way that they want them to. They had no expectations this year from even people around their program. And here they're sitting 4-0. Now, they're not very good in day games, and they're not great on the road, but they have confidence right now, and Baylor's got to find some of that. Is that what makes this game really dangerous? Because BYU is not going to out-athlete most of the teams they play, but they seem very fundamentally sound and can really make you kind of not do what you want to do.
Well, I can simplify that. They're 4-0, and they beat Kansas State 38-9. So those 2 things alone put some doubt into me about what you can do against them and what you can't. You're right. I read the stats. Those early morning games are killers for them. In fact, I don't think they've won one. And that's tough when you're flying east and you play at 10 o'clock in the morning your time. It's on the road. I know BYU will have a lot of fans there, but it's still on the road. And I think that we probably match up pretty well with these guys. So, I don't know. The opening line was 2.5 Baylor. Mm-hmm. So somebody thinks something out of this, and I think we're good enough to beat a 4-0 BYU team if we play our game. And I think, and that perspective, the game Saturday made me feel even more confident about that because I didn't think there was any way we would get to Shedeur Sanders like we did. I mean, I knew we would try to put pressure on him, but guys, we had him running for his life all night long. And I think he's as good as advertised. He made some plays on us, but he also bit the dust quite often during the night. That doesn't count the hits that he took when we didn't sack him. So I think that BYU is a game we should win. I think we've got the talent to win it. We're just going to have to make plays, and it's really simple. You just have to have guys that make plays when the play is presented to them. They've got to make the play, and that's what we're going to have to do Saturday.
Yeah, the defense could have made a play there at the end. He could have made a field goal on special teams that would have made that a 2-score lead, and the Hail Mary would have been irrelevant. And offensively, you mentioned the Ashton Hawkins play, but I want to focus there. Just what are you seeing right now with Sawyer Robertson in charge? Obviously, still very hard to run the football, but is this good enough to win games moving forward? Is it better than how they start? Just like, where are you right now with what you see from Jake Spavital and that offense and what you need to see kind of moving forward?
I thought Sawyer was really good in the first half. I thought maybe he slipped a little bit in the third quarter, and then I thought he came back and played pretty well in the fourth. But if you would have asked me before these two games that he's played, I think I'd take it. I think he'll get better and better. You think about Sawyer, he doesn't have a lot of experience as a healthy quarterback. We've talked about it before. He had the ankle last year, which I thought really killed him. I guarantee you he doesn't go 40-something yards on 4th and 2 for a touchdown last year. He couldn't do it. He couldn't plan. He couldn't run. So I'm encouraged by his ability to run the ball. I think the throwing game's got to get a little bit better. You can't fault Sawyer, though, for a throw that would have been another 60 yards passing on his account if a receiver just makes a catch. So that's not on Sawyer. So I think offensively we got the ability. The running game, I thought struggled. I know we were still well over 100 yards, but 80 of that was your quarterback. So they're going to have to figure out something there to improve on that side. But I tell you what, guys, Colorado was better defensively than I thought, and they had said all along that they were pretty decent defensively, or Colorado had said that, and I think they were. I thought their front guys were pretty tough, not a bad defensive football team, but you still have to find a way to run the ball. But I thought the last 2 weeks that Spav has been able to open up his offense a little bit, call some plays that we didn't maybe run first couple of weeks. So that's encouraging, and I think that continues to open up as time goes and you really figure out which running back you want back there. I still say Washington is a guy that's got to play, and Pendergrass hadn't played a lot lately. I think he is, and there are times when Richard Reese needs to be in there too with that speed. So I just think they're still figuring it out offensively. I really do. On the defensive side, I think our schemes have been pretty good.
You mentioned the running game and the amount of touches. And we'll close it out with this, Ricky. Thanks for your time. Dominic Richardson had the unfortunate fumble. You have to protect the football. Travis Hunter made a great play. 15 carries. Bryson Washington, 10. Dawson Pendergrass, 4. Richard Reese, 2. And, of course, Sawyer had 9, and Monterey Baldwin had 1. Do you like that? Do you think that should be different where it's Washington, Reese, Dominic, Pendergrass? Because it seems like they have a few running backs, but do they need to dictate that there's the one guy and then all the others get a carry or 4 whenever?
Yeah. I'll say this on that, and I'm not out there every day, and I don't see practice, and I don't see game film, so I can't in any form or fashion judge it the way Keenan Hall can or Spav. I just don't know. But generally, teams that are really good in the running game have one running back that's going to get 18 or 20 carries. And he's going to carry the water most of the time. He's going to come off and get some relief, and you're going to get the other guys in there and get 5-6 carries each. And the good thing about it is they're fresh and they're just as likely to break one as your main guy. But haven't seen Oklahoma State play this year, but I promise you, Gordon, I doubt, comes out of the game a whole lot. So the teams that really have that flash at running back, to me, that's a guy that gets 20 carries a game.
Well, Taj Brooks at Tech and others. Thanks for your time, Ricky. Appreciate your time. Ricky Thompson, former Baylor receiver, played in the NFL with Washington, and the sideline reporter who was on the other sideline when the throw, as he mentioned, was made by Shador to Wester for the eventual game-tying points. I don't like the distribution of the ball. I know you go with the hot back, and Dominic Richardson was okay, but they need somebody that can go 40. And I don't know if they have that, if it's not Reese and or it's not.
I don't even think Reese does that.
Bryson Washington. Yeah.
When does Reese really do that?
Well, it's a kick return. He'd go 100, but you're right.
Yeah, but I think you need to. I think everything's better when you settle on these are the guys, and then you pepper in the depth.
No, they ran for 160 yards, 4 yards a carry, but still.
Across the position. Like
take out Sawyer's run.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, you can't. That's kind of like I saw a high school game and the total stats was one-sided, but a team had a 92-yard kick return. It doesn't count towards the total yards offensively, so that can be a little bit. But you're right. Sawyer had the big long run.
Point being, though, like I prefer, okay, you know who the quarterback is, you know who the best wide receivers are, you know who the best running back is. Then your depth helps push those guys along.
Yeah.
But those are the guys who lead you through, and those are the ones you rely on. And, yeah, you've got 4 running backs with different skill sets that can maybe do a different thing, but they're not good enough at the little things yet to start like throwing out this and this, and we're gonna change things up. We're gonna rope it up. Yeah, we're gonna do these things. They've got a couple pitches, and they need to stick to those now.
I thought the overall, though, the game plan on both sides of the ball was great. Make a field goal, kick a field goal, knock down a pass. Don't take the wrong pass rush angle. Ollie Gordon had 11 of the 15 carries. Oklahoma State, speaking of the running game, was non-existent. Utah clamped down on them and did not give them any room, while Utah ran the ball 52 times in their win for 249 yards. When we come back, Josh Furlong from KSL Sports in Salt Lake City on that Utah win, on the Utes moving forward, and the quarterback situation, and maybe a nugget or two on what he's heard about Utah State bolting for the Pac-12, and this is 365 Sports. Don Chimador and Coffee Beans, Joshua and Cheyenne run it in the Town West Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. I'm looking at a picture of their 48-foot walk-in humidor with a lot of signs around the windows. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windows showing off the cigars, boxes upon boxes of cigars inside the walk-in humidor. On the wall, when you get in the door, you go off to the right, it's all of the various Texas brand cigars, and a lot of them from military veterans who have their own companies that have specials. And I have been given a box of a little of this, a little bit of that one, and of course it's fantastic. And so supporting the veterans when you can. But Macanudo, Ashton, Romeo and Julieta, Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, H. Upman, Cohiba, Padron, on and on. My Father, yes, they have those events. CAO, the best cigars, not only in the country, but the world, inside the 48-foot walk-in humidor, along with Vita Dreams. It's a gummy that allows you to kind of maybe rest your mind a little bit before you go to bed, so you sleep a little bit longer and you don't toss and turn. How about knowing you have that extra 30 minutes, you fall asleep pretty quickly. Don Chimador and Coffee Beans, Joshua and Cheyenne in the Town West Shopping Center in between Valley Mills, Richland Drive in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, man, the chat room, for some of you new, has been fun to watch today. Somebody said, what's going on today? It's a full moon or something, but it's been crazy. Josh Furlong will try to help settle us down a little bit. KSL Sports, KSLSports.com, the sports director, beat writer covering Utah athletics. Josh, what a nice, decisive, emphatic win for yet Utah. They just seem like they never change.
Yeah, they're pretty consistent, right? Like they get in there, they do their job. It doesn't really matter who's under center and everything, and they found a way to kind of do that the last few years. In years past, when they were going through their transition in the Pac-12, it wasn't so much that, but they've really hit their stride and have found a way to just kind of consistently do it at a high level, and more times than not, you can't doubt Kyle Whittingham.
What is the difference that you see in Isaac Wilson between the quarterbacks that they had to roll out that were not named Cam Rising a year ago that could not move the ball at all?
Yeah, I think in large part his pocket presence is so much better. He gets in there. He's not fazed by the pressure. He comes in and does really well to make sure that he's going through his progressions. He's going through different things that way where he's not phased by it. Last year, your two quarterbacks, they would have their read, and if their read wasn't open, they didn't really know what to do. And so it became a struggle for them to be able to get the ball, or the ball out, I should say. And so you're seeing much more of that progression and being able to go through his checkdowns or doing whatever he needs to be able to make the right read. He's also supremely confident in his ability. He understands that he can hit tight windows. Those windows are much quicker at the college level, obviously, that they close faster, and he's trying to figure out his touch. But for the most part, he's a guy that isn't afraid of the moment. He gets in there. He's got a similar kind of competitive drive as Cam Rising, got a lot of moxie. And comes in there and has a lot of the support of his team. So you didn't see a lot of that last year, where they were really trying hard to just kind of get some sort of life and trying to get something going. And so it's been a much more freeing moment for Utah, even though the same situation is present with Cam Rising sitting on the sidelines.
Josh, did you make the trip to Stillwater?
Yeah, I was out there.
Okay, what were your impressions, man? That's one of the, I guess, probably more top of the list mentioned places as far as just toughness and great crowds and things like that in the league. Obviously, Utah made that look like nothing, because there's teams that have been in the league for like 20 years that can't, even with great teams, win there, and they go and do it with a backup quarterback of all things. But what were your impressions of the Pokes experience?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great venue. I was excited when this game was scheduled. This became one of those that personally, like, I wanted to go see. I wanted to see a true college town and kind of how it worked. The venues are great. The tailgating is great. The fans are, they're passionate inside the stadium, but they're incredibly friendly and welcoming to everybody around. So from that standpoint, it was a really fun atmosphere. Similar to Utah's game last year against Baylor, it was just scorching hot. It was really tough. So, I think that was the hardest aspect of it. I think they were better prepared for it this year than they were last year. I know a lot of people got burns and they didn't really, have the right stuff to play on the turf that way. So I didn't get the same feedback from this time where it was as bad. I mean, it was still hot, but no, it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun time, or I had a fun time out there.
I saw that back in early September, you wrote a story, like a feature on Isaac Wilson. An inside look who the freshman quarterback is, what drives him, and how Zach Wilson's path in football defines a lot of who Isaac is, and we know the connection there. What does drive him?
He just, he's got some of that drive where he wants to be, better than his older brother, right? He wants to be that. Like, a lot of people want to pin him down and say, oh, he's Isaac, Zach's younger brother. That drives him, but he's just always had kind of that mindset, talking to his, his dad and talking to his coach. He's just always wanted to just go out there and have fun, right? Like, he loves to play football. It's not necessarily work for him. And it's still early. It's not like he's trying to, get into these high, these depths of football where he's got a lot relying on him. But he just goes out there and he has a lot of fun. He can throw an interception, and his dad said he'll joke on the sidelines, which rubs people the wrong way sometimes because it sounds like he doesn't care. He absolutely cares. He's a humble kid. He knows what he needs to work on. He sees what he needs to do, but he's not afraid of the moment. He's very confident, and he wants to be able to be the best quarterback that he can, and he understands that he is, right? In high school, there were very few people that could stop who he was, and he knew it, and he was very confident in that ability. You're starting to see that as he gets into the collegiate level, where there's guys in that room when he came in that had more experience in the playbook, but he still went in there and he tacked it. He went in there and he wanted to do everything he could to be in the best position to be able to succeed. And it worked. He became the backup, and clearly now he's the starter in as long as Cam is out. But this is a guy that works hard in his craft, and he just wants to be able to be the best player that he possibly can be.
Josh Furlong with us, KSL Sports in Salt Lake City, on the Utah Utes, and, of course, an impressive win in Stillwater. If you don't mind, Utah State, how much are you, and we'll get back to Utah, but how much are you locked into what they've done, and what was that like when they made the decision to bolt the Mountain West?
Yeah, this has been an interesting situation with Utah State here because for the longest time, it looked like they were going to be passed over. They have a few things that are going on in their department that don't make them the most attractive athletic department right now, just with what's going on. And so it became kind of the worst scenario for a lot of the people there to think, we may be left in the dust. And then suddenly it just kind of turns, and Utah State somehow is the team that is kind of holding all the cards, so to speak. it's still, it's wild out here because nobody has really said anything official. It's all still been kind of hush hush outside of sources from national media, and trying to be able to lock that in. We've gotten our own sources that say things have happened, things have been signed, the deals are all done, but nothing is official come out. And then today we find out in that lawsuit that went between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West that they're putting that in there as the official declaration that they've signed. So it's still a little tricky. I know there's many people that were advocating on their behalf to be in the best position possible, and right now they think that the Pac-12 is that. I don't know what that looks like. Clearly we'll see what the ramifications of a 7-team conference right now are, but I think Utah State's trying to find itself in a better situation, and they feel like the Pac-12 right now is that spot.
Josh, back to the quarterback situation with Isaac Wilson. Seeing as you didn't really know anything about Cam Rising, we didn't know anything about Cam Rising until he did a radio interview later in the year and be like, listen, my knee was destroyed. The finger, obviously not as big of a deal, but will they say anything about his legitimate availability? Because there was a little bit of this last year of like, well, he might be ready by a certain point in the season. And here, this injury far less severe. And I'm kind of getting the same vibes just from outside the circle.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Whittingham has always been a guy that doesn't want to talk about injuries unless they're season ending. He finds it as a competitive advantage to withhold that information. And unless somebody, namely the league, enforces something where it's a unified or a uniform, I should say, injury report, he's just not going to do it. So it's been tough to get anything official. There's different tricks and nuances that we've created as beat writers to get some information. But it's not always that easy, right? You look at it in this situation on Saturday, a lot of the intel was saying that he was going to go. He was going to at least give it a shot and try to be in there for at the very least one drive and see what could happen. And then they flipped the script. So it's one where he will talk a little bit more openly about Cam just because he is a highly visible spot. But he just doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't see an advantage in it. He did mention on Monday that there's just not a lot of velocity or zip on the ball, and so that's kind of what they felt that Isaac was going to be better. They gave him a better shot. So honestly, it's kind of wearing. It's taxing on a lot of people. It's taxing on us as reporters trying to get this information, and then it having changed, multiple times. But until there's a mandate from the Big 12. Brett Yormark or college football as a collective, this is the way it's going to be. And some people want to call it gamesmanship on his part. And maybe there's some of that, he can still hide behind that. It really was a game time decision. They really were trying to find if he could go. It just is a matter of, trying to figure out how that shakes out.
What are your thoughts on what you've seen from Arizona as they now loom next for Utah? Great wide receiver, obviously. Really fun quarterback. Beyond that, it looks like a team that's got a new head coach and a lot of question marks. Utah's obviously very confident right now, Josh. 10-plus point favorites. Just what do you expect to see this weekend?
Yeah, first off, getting Arizona at home at Utah, that bodes well for Utah. They love that environment and being able to have it, especially with how last year shaped up where they were coming off an emotional loss to Washington, felt like they could get that. And then Arizona just beat them up. But this Arizona team, I feel like they have the pieces there. It's just not as complete as last year. Yeah, I think they've got a great head coach. Obviously, Noah Fafita is a phenomenal quarterback. McMillan is a phenomenal receiver. But it's outside of them, that's kind of it, right? They've got pieces. They can do some things. But if you can kind of negate what those two players do, it feels like Utah has a really good shot. And any other teams like Kansas State absolutely took advantage of. Defensively, I don't think they have the guys to be able to compete, and that becomes a big worry for them where they aren't able to stop a lot of what Utah's able to do, whether that's Cam Rising or Isaac Wilson. It just becomes a challenge where they need, other guys to step up, and I just don't know that they have that yet. I don't follow it as religiously, but from afar, that's kind of how I've seen it.
By the way, I loved your tweet, Ross Dellinger, when he talked about the suit between the Pac-12 suing the Mountain West, and mom and dad are fighting again, and the real winners are the lawyers again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It is like a family affair when it comes to that. Josh, good stuff, man. Thank you so much, Craig.
I just want to ask him how hard this BYU-Utah Big 12 championship game is going to hit based on where we're going right now.
I mean, if that were to happen, man, this place would go insane. And I don't even know if we get a bye week before that rivalry game this year. And man, the chirping and the comments on Twitter are going to be insane. So I can only imagine what a championship level environment of that would be. But it would be fun. It would be a lot of fun.
One thing, and you'll learn this, and people are learning how good Utah is, and we knew that before. We never doubted it, is that in the Big 12, expect somebody from the lower half or lower third is going to be very much alive when it comes to playing for the Big 12 or getting into the conference championship game. It's just like an annual right.
It's fun. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to learn a lot of these teams now more than I ever have. I've watched from afar, but it's nice to be able to get up close and kind of see it from that vantage point.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Great to get you on. Josh Furlong, KSL Sports, the sports director in Salt Lake City, plus a nugget or two. Even how it's, the Utah State news kind of just came out of nowhere for them, that they're a part of that lawsuit between the Pac-12 suing the Mountain West over penalty fees, et cetera, millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot going on there right now on the pro side of things. Got the new hockey team. New NHL team that'll be joining the Jazz as pro franchises. Obviously, you've got two teams now in the Big 12 together, and this Utah State this Utah State move to the Pac-12, which, in name at least is a jump up. I don't know other than that how much of it is, but I wanted to kind of touch on this with Josh there at the end, and you asked another question that took us away from it, so I want to return to this to tell you what.
You should have told me, yeah.
No, but it's fine because I didn't have to put it in there with him. It was just I could have hit it, but it's still fine. Mike Gundy, in talking about Utah in the post-game press conference, or maybe it was his first weekly press conference, I thought this was just so damn accurate. He said, like, when you're looking at Utah athlete for athlete, if you're just looking at their athletes, you play teams in the Big 12, especially when Texas and Oklahoma were in there, like Browse and Baylor were at their peak, where you're like, damn, like there's some dudes over there. And he said, like, Utah's not really one of those that you look at them athlete-wise and you're really intimidated or you're really all that gobsmacked by the guys that you're seeing. He said they just play he said they don't take your breath away. They just play really good. Like, that was his thing. There's nothing fancy or nothing all that special that you really, like, whatever. It's just, it looks like a normal team, and then you get on the field and they just play really good football, and that's basically all it is for Utah. And I thought that was the best way to sum it up. Of they don't take your breath away, they just play really good, and it's worked amazingly for Kyle Whittingham for a very long time, and it's working right now early in the Big 12. But yeah, they're just a really good football team, and that's all there is to it. And so we'll see if anybody's good enough to just jump up there and knock them off that pedestal that they're standing on at the moment. But easier said than done because, like Saturday, they get the ball, they hog it, they drive it on you, they play great defense. And, Isaac Wilson did enough to score and get that lead, especially early on, so that the Oklahoma State effort to try and come back was not able to happen. But yeah, I thought that was just a great way of summing them up. You're not going to be blown away by the athletes that you see, but you're going to be blown away by all the really good football that they play together. And Gundy's press conferences, man, like, he's such a jewel, because there's another thing that he was talking about with his team, and I know we're going to talk about Oklahoma State in a little while, but I'll get this out there. He talked about his quarterback play was terrible on Saturday. Like, the reason why they benched Alan Bowman, he got into the specifics of that and why they brought him back. And he did say Alan Bowman is their starting quarterback. Like, they're not going to change that again. But he just had to kind of give the team a little bit of a jolt, right? But he said it like the coaches didn't have a great game plan and the players didn't make enough plays. And I was like, that's basically what we saw from a Baylor perspective. And it's like you're hesitant to say that because, oh, no, you want to blame the head coach. But it's like Gundy's saying it. And, like, quite frankly, Chris Kleiman said it in his. Like, all the teams that lost games, they all said pretty much the same thing. Like, yeah, there were things you could do coaching-wise. But in this league, the margin for error is so small that it ultimately comes down to just who makes those critical plays, early enough or in the critical moments. And that is going to be what pushes you one way or the other, because nobody's just going to go out there and just out-talent anybody really in the Big 12. That it's such just a razor-thin margin in this league that, for Oklahoma State, it's just refreshing to hear that. Now, he can say that from a place of security because he knows that he's Mike Gundy. He's been there for 20-plus years, and him calling out the players isn't a coach on a hot seat doing that to try to throw them under the bus, right? So I know it's different from his standpoint, but it's like he's right, and I felt that way about what we saw in Boulder on Saturday. Of like, you can point to coaching all you want to, but like ultimately players have to make the plays, you know?
Kick the field goal.
Yes. I mean, that's really as simple as it gets.
It was a simple 40-something yard field goal. Kick the field goal from the left hash. It ought to be, again, guys are going to miss and players miss, and I understand, but kick the field goal. And
it's just Aranda's in a spot where he's going to get skewered no matter what, and I understand that he's built that up for himself. But I do think that game was a situation of like you had multiple opportunities in all phases of the game to make one single play that would have won that game. And so leaving that, he should be fired. I'm like, somebody step up and make a freaking play, because they do it at Utah. They did it at BYU on Saturday. They did it in all the other games that you want to mention that mattered, where teams flex their muscles, and that's really, and Colorado did it when they had to do it, and so that's to me just the key to this BYU game this weekend is who steps up and make plays. Is it going to be Sawyer Robertson more than it is Jake Retzlaff, or is it going to be Chase Roberts more than it is Hal Presley? That's what it's going to come down to, not this coach out-coached and out-foxed the other, because I think there's a lot of really good coaches in this league that you're not going to have that huge coaching advantage.
So if Shedeur throws an incomplete pass to Wester, it hits the ground, it's incomplete. Should he get blamed for the loss? Because on the play before that, they had the perfect setup. They should have scored on that one. It's when you want to blame the coach, you're going to find a way to do it. Phil Bennett yesterday, and I just saw in the forums where somebody was saying, Phil's just trying to protect Aranda. You have no idea what you're talking about, because even though he occasionally slips and says we, when he's referring to Baylor, because he spent a lot of time there, he has questioned many things in the past. But I've also had, I was sitting there having lunch today at Midway High School with Joe Gillespie and his staff, the ones who would do the broadcast. The setup was fine. The last play defensive scheme was fine. The right defensive end collapsed. It allowed him to get around the corner, exactly what Bennett said, what Aranda said.
And there was a safety just off
in the back of the end.
Somewhere else.
Well, I think a couple of the guys, and you wonder, maybe they were hoping if he doesn't get a chance to turn the corner and get a chance to launch it like a BB, maybe you're thinking about a floater, a lollipop up in the air, and you could go then knock it down. That wasn't going to be the case.
But he was near the back line, which here's the thing. If you get a Hail Mary on the back line, it's kind of like if a tiger gets out of the zoo and then eats you. Well, he kind of earned it. He got all the way from the zoo to my house. Like, I get it. Like, that was unbelievable. But, I'm not going to be that mad about it.
No, but getting eaten by a tiger?
He earned it. Like, nobody got him.
It's a hell of a
figured
play.
He figured out. But when you just let the tiger go, like that's what he did, like then I'm going to be mad. But if he foxed his way out, then good. You mentioned Gundy. So he did the opposite of Hugh Freeze.
What do you mean?
He took the blame for it and didn't just say
Hugh Freeze has
our quarterbacks are terrible.
Yeah, he's getting.
No, Gundy said
he said our quarterbacks didn't play well, but that's on me. Hugh Freeze said our quarterbacks didn't play well, and that's on them.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, Gundy said he didn't like the offensive game plan, and he explained why he didn't like it. He just pointed out, and he basically said our players have to play better, we have to coach better, and I thought that was refreshing. When he was talking about Utah, they don't take your breath away. They just play really good. And I guess my whole point with that conversation was that's going to be the case in the Big 12. It's not going to be you're just going to outplay your people. It's going to be just who plays the best. And Utah right now is playing the best all-around football, and that's why they're standing on the top of the conference, along with a BYU, I know, as well. But they're the favorites, obviously, for a reason.
Utah doesn't have a lot of flash, and yet they do. It's just in a different way. And I would love that kind of consistency from a football team that I liked. Just week in and week out. Occasionally they blank the bed, but they are just so consistent, and they don't have a roller coasters of up and down. No matter who's hurt, who's playing, that's just the way they play. When we come back, Craig Smoak, and Off the Radar, this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock owns 5 stores in the Waco area. And now, you've heard me talk about the pepperoni and sausage magnifico, which is a pizza, a pie, a large one, and every bit of pepperoni you can stick on a pizza. And on top of that, all of the Italian sausage you can stick in a pizza. Now, they have a triple pepperoni magnifico. Like, I don't know if there's any pepperoni left in America because they put them on the Marco's Pizza. Limited time, $11.99, large. Use the code, go online, marcos.com at triple pep. Order now. Also, the Margarita Magnifico, fresh mozzarella, Roma tomatoes, finished with a basil drizzle on a light Golden Trust. A limited time for that available too. There's the mega meal, one large topping pizza, cheesy bread, and Cine Squares. Football season, Monday Night Football last night, a couple of different games. What might be Thursday night, of course, football, or any college game, and you want to order a pizza, Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco and 1 near you at marcos.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into 365 Sports and Off the Radar. Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45-ish or so. And here we take a little bit of a break typically from pure college football and get into some other topics, although I will still dabble in some college football from time to time, especially the TV ratings, which I'm going to have those on Thursday. The update on all the games from last week and kind of how all those ranked. I'm very interested to see the Baylor-Colorado rating. I think that ought to be very interesting. And obviously we've got a mega audience that's going to be tapped in for Georgia, Alabama this weekend. So we'll get into that on Thursdays. But we talked earlier about what's going on with the Pac-12, and I just wanted to mention one thing from that we didn't touch on. Did you see the reports about them at least kicking the tires on UConn football?
Yep, I did. I sure did.
Yep. But no basketball?
I sure did.
I mean,
you ever heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard that before. I've heard about UConn football and basketball and all that, but I just didn't know if y'all had seen that because we didn't mention that sliver. But, yeah, UConn football in the Pac-12, but basketball in the Big East. Like, I think Brett Yormark would love for that to happen, would be, yeah, go take the football team. We'll swoop in and we'll grab the 2 basketball programs, and thank you for doing us that service that we don't have to bring on football in a few years. I think that would make that deal happen real quick if you're Brett Yormark and company.
Yeah, so do I. I think that'd be
because the only reason really they were told no was the football.
Yeah,
otherwise they would have done it. Yeah,
But it is funny that they would even consider it, because taking UConn football without the basketball, it's like going to a restaurant and they're like, "Do you want the ribeye?" You're like, no, I only want the garnish.
Yeah.
Like whatever's on the plate that you decorate it up with. Like, do you have just 20 sprigs of parsley? We'll take 20 sprigs of parsley.
Cilantro.
Cilantro, yeah.
I like cilantro.
Yeah, so this was from various outlets, but it was the Hartford Courant that I first saw this from, and I guess it was piggybacking off of Ross Dellinger's article as well, that the UConn Huskies had conversations about joining as a football-only member, but have also discussed full-time membership. There's the Gonzaga report that Brett McMurphy touched on as well, but I don't know. I wanted to throw that in there because, like, man, what an interesting wrinkle that would be. And if you're the Pac, I would just be so pissed if you brought in UConn football without basketball. But we'll see how that goes.
And I maybe I shouldn't say this.
To the Pac of all places, all the way across the country.
Is UConn like thirsty? One of those that Emory, right? When you go to a place, there's a girl that's thirsty. Is that what UConn is? It's good for them. I guess you guys are going to disagree.
Look, I mean, yeah, they're thirsty for a better situation. I mean, yeah, they're thirsty for a better partner for sure. I mean, that's very clear. They're flirting with everybody to try and find a better situation, somebody who's got a better financial stability and probably a better house and, better long-term security. So I think that's fair in that way. I think Thirsty's not really talking about long-term marriage, though. It's talking about the short-term satisfaction.
Here's what Connecticut's problem is that they don't really, like, if you ask their fans, like, do you give a crap about football in the way you do about basketball? They would say no. But what they do know is that the only way that they can keep pace with a lot of these other teams, that can, for example, the SEC is about to make a huge push into basketball because I'm sure Greg Sankey doesn't like hearing that the ACC and Big 12 could be better than him. They're going to make a big push. Well, what Alabama can do, who's got a really good basketball program, is now hit the pedal to the floor and take some football money and just put it over with basketball. Connecticut can't do that. Right. They can't do that at all. So they would like a fully subsidized athletic department like all these others have that they can say, like, look, basketball, we're about to try to do a 3-peat. We want to do a 7-peat. How do we do that? Well, you need money. Well, eventually it's going to run out, or somebody's going to be like, look, I'm tired of this. I want to make sure UConn doesn't get these guys.
Yeah, so that's just something interesting to watch as well as the Gonzaga piece, because obviously I'm looking at it from this Big 12 perspective. That was a long time now, going on a year or two, rumored about Gonzaga basketball. Well, it looks like they could be joining the Pac, so that would be off the table. And then the UConn piece, obviously talked about as recently as, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, we were talking about that UConn report, and the Big 12 obviously held off, made an official statement about it that they actually put out publicly that they were not going to move forward. But now you see this and, hey, if the Pac wants to take the UConn football program and the basketball programs either remain in the Big East or suddenly open for business, if you will, for lack of a better term, then maybe that's the exact situation that would be great for the Big 12 to go, we'll take that and add to our basketball pile. So there you have that. Just wanted to follow up there. Meanwhile, you guys were talking about it as we were in the commercial break, and this is nice to talk about because, man, there's not been a lot of nice things to talk about when it comes to the Washington Commanders. But last night, there was a lot of fun things to talk about. 38-33, Washington beats the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. Commanders now 2-1, and the Bengals dropped to 0-3, including 0-2 at home. But a really fun, competitive game. Washington had the halftime lead and able to hold on there at the end thanks to some just big-time throws from Jaden Daniels, the rookie from LSU, and the Heisman Trophy winner from last year. 21 of 23, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked a couple times, but had a 93 QBR, which is pretty fantastic, and also had a rushing touchdown. You see that wrinkle to his game that adds another element where you're like, oh, damn, this guy's a real dual threat. Had 39 yards on the ground, including the touchdown. Terry McLaurin, their fantastic wide receiver, who's just had nothing around him, basically, and no real quarterback.
Talk about thirsty. He's been looking for somebody.
Yeah, he's thirsty. You talking about thirsty. He was thirsty. That's exactly right. 4 catches, 100 yards, had a massive touchdown, and another long, deep ball that really got them going early on as far as having some confidence. Jaden Daniels throws a damn pretty deep ball, and he looks skinny still for your typical NFL quarterback. I know there's always going to be concern, but as so long as that offensive line's holding up and protecting him, damn, he looks like the real deal. And I'm not trying to get too crazy because as a Washington fan, I've been here with a lot of different quarterbacks. But, man, oh, man, that felt different last night. I don't know if it hit different for y'all, but I think it did based on kind of the reactions.
He's a player. I mean, he really is. And
scares me to death. He's very small.
Yeah, he's skinny, like like RG3, but and look, he runs like RG3 and has that out there. But the good news for Jaden Daniels is the organization is not run by Satan himself.
Right.
So,
so if his leg's barely hanging on, he won't trot him back out there for, you know.
As someone who has no love for that organization whatsoever.
Hater.
But I'm surrounded by 3 people who do, and then we just had a former esteemed member of that organization on the show. I feel like I'm surrounded by it at all times. Even I felt bad watching Daniel Snyder run that team into the ground. I don't have any love for the New York Knicks at all, but I feel bad when bad owners do things. For example, James Dolan. I saw a thing today. Larry Beal in Oakland just ripped into John Fisher. When bad owners do things to fans, I hate it. I don't like the A's. You know, if they never won a World Series, it wouldn't make me sad. But like to not even try, that's the thing that's upsetting. And for you guys to have to put up with Daniel Snyder that long is. Your time's come. You need to be able to enjoy it.
Well, and here's the other thing. Under the gun and clutch, free and easy, that's fine. Cincinnati's defense is not very good. But when they had to, at the end of the game, make plays when they were trying to milk the clock, it was wonderful. And I think Jaden Daniels is a former Arizona State Sun Devil.
He is.
Not quite.
Well, that's right. He played in Baton Rouge, too.
Yeah, he technically is mostly a former LSU Tiger. But, yes, Jaden Daniels, who you might remember back during what was the Herm Edwards era, had his locker ransacked by his teammates, or I guess former teammates, when all of that was coming to an end. Remember that video that was rolling around? And then you kind of saw what the culture was there in Tempe under that regime. And they are in a so much better place right now with Kenny Dillingham. It's not even comparable.
Think about what they could have had they kept it together. They had Jaden Daniels at quarterback, Ricky Pearsall, and Johnny Wilson.
Yeah.
All of those guys.
Pretty salty. Like, Herm Edwards knows NFL talent, but he just did not know how to run a college football program to save his life. But, yeah, Jaden Daniels looks like the real deal, and we'll see how it goes. But, damn, that was fun to watch last night. And those throws were just – oh, man, just beautiful, beautiful. Terry McLaurin also an incredible wide. I'm so – like – yeah, you mentioned, like, talk about thirsty. Like, how thirsty was this guy for just a real quarterback to make some of those throws? And he's doing his job on the other end, going back to players making plays.
Yep.
They needed them to make a play to stem off any Cincinnati comeback effort or to close that game out. And what happens? Jaden Daniels throws a beauty while he's getting hit. And Terry McLaurin lays out forward and gets the knee down in the end zone and does – and, like, players make plays. And Washington's 2 best players – maybe on the entire team, but certainly on offense last night made plays. So a great win for them. The other Monday Night Football game, not as much of personal interest to us, obviously, and not really as much of interest to anybody because it was a blowout. Bills now 3-0, 47-10. They win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, who now dropped to 0-3 on the year. And I thought Doug Peterson was maybe going to get this thing moving a certain direction, but damn if they're moving backwards again in Jacksonville. So that was a very one-sided affair. Not sure how much y'all caught of that game.
I saw a little bit more of the Washington game because by the time I got to turn this one on, it was already 28-0.
Real quick.
And I only turned it on to see that because I have James Cook on one of my fantasy teams, and I saw a tweet that was like, hey, James Cook is going to cook me in fantasy this week. And I looked, like, oh, he's already got 2 touchdowns. That's great. Thank you so much, James Cook. But I think Doug Peterson's going to get fired, and they're going to have to bring in a super QB guru to fix what's going on with Trevor Lawrence because
what is he?
What?
Is he not a quarterback guru?
Apparently not anymore, and because Trevor Lawrence is playing poorly. Think about this. Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Dak all got these big contracts. Tua, his career is very much in jeopardy. Trevor Lawrence has hit the wall, and Dak had his team not build anything around him all offseason. So going
He's got
well.
A great running game.
Yeah, going well.
Yeah, going really, really well.
By the way, Jennifer Smoak's fantasy team is led by one Josh Allen, who she calls Joshy Poo.
Yeah. So do I. No, I'm just
kidding. And she was lit up last night. She won. She's 2-1, but he was, man, it seemed like it's feast or famine. Most of the time it's feast, but he was on fire.
Yeah, and the only bad side to that Bills loss from my perspective and just kind of generally what we would care about is that Terrell Bernard was out of that game. He got hurt prior to the game, so he's dealing with a pectoral injury, and that's just what's going to prevent him from being the great player that he can be is injuries and health, because that's what ended his season in the playoffs last year at the most inopportune time when he was having a great season and didn't get to close that out. And then he gets off to a nice start. Is named one of two captains along with Joshie Poo Allen, and he gets hurt a couple of weeks in. So we'll see. Looks like a 2.5 to 4 week timeline according to Sean McDermott. So that just sucks.
I'll never forget. I had a weekly show. I guess it was with Jay Ratliff or Jason Ferguson. Jason Ferguson, the former defensive lineman, and he had a pectoral injury. It was torn, and you're done. I mean, you say, well, can they not? You're done. And so I hope that it's more of an aggravation, annoying, and not something that, again, is ripped again.
Yeah, and that was unique to have the two Monday Night Football games, although that goes back to a 2021 broadcast agreement, and it is the first of 4 weeks, did you guys realize this, where there will be Monday Night Football doubleheaders, and that will include the second of those 4 occurrences, which will be next week. You'll get Titans versus Dolphins along with Seahawks and Lions. And then you'll have another one in Week 7 and another one in Week 15. But it was kind of hard to keep track, but I got 2 TVs because it's college football season now, and so I have 2 games always ongoing. So that was pretty cool to be able to bounce back and forth, and I really enjoyed that. So there's a little talk about Monday Night Football. Meanwhile, a very controversial figure these days, and kind of a sad story here, but I don't know if you saw the news on Brett Favre announcing in front of a congressional hearing that he is Parkinson's disease. He was mentioning that as he was appearing before a House Ways and Means Committee hearing on welfare reform, and he was speaking about Prevacus, a company making concussion drug, and la-di-da-di-da, but he revealed, and he's also got the situation in Mississippi with the welfare. I don't even know the right terms to describe that.
Theft?
Fraud.
Yeah, fraud. Yeah.
But he announced today at that congressional hearing, and I'm sorry, but I have to wonder if, was that a sympathy thing? I don't, you know what I mean?
Craig, I thought the same exact thing. Look, I'm very sorry for Brett Favre that he is going through Parkinson's and that anybody has to go through that. But at a congressional hearing about welfare reform, I'm not sure it's germane to the conversation, especially when you're brought there because you were part of a group that is currently undergoing investigation for scamming the state of Mississippi out of welfare funds, and that needs to be addressed first. Hey, I'm sorry about your Parkinson's, but also, why don't you give the state the money back that you stole from the citizens because of, trying to find loopholes to get some things done?
Yeah, and this all ties into that Prevacus and all that ties into that Mississippi case involving welfare fraud and all of that. So we'll see where it goes from there. But I hate that I had that feeling, and yet I had that feeling because that's just how he strikes me. You know what I mean? So good luck to him health-wise, but he absolutely positively needs to pay for any involvement in defrauding people who need money in the state of Mississippi who are already struggling. I'll never get on board with trying to defend that. So meanwhile, the last note I'll have here as we move on, just a college basketball. Actually, there's 2 college basketball notes because the question that a lot of people have been asking for quite a while now is, when will the Big 12 basketball schedule drop? And we now know that, as within the last hour, the Big 12 put out a tweet with a little basketball emoji and the calendar emoji, and it simply says Thursday, 9/26/24. So looks like in 2 days we will get our glimpse at the Big 12 basketball schedule with the new schools added in and get to see what all those matchups look like. But I think a lot of people are fired up for the possibilities and just all of the ranked teams that you're going to have moving forward and just all of the great basketball to be played. So Thursday we'll get a bigger glimpse at Big 12 basketball.
The algorithm, it'll be interesting. But imagine if you were just Team X, even if you're a part of this list, and you have to open up against Kansas, Iowa State, Arizona, TCU, Baylor, and Kansas State.
Yeah,
Texas Tech. I mean, you get on the wrong side of that, and you could be really, really good and be 2-5.
That's one of the reasons I was so impressed with Houston. last
God
year.
Almighty,
Because
Houston should be.
I was going to say Houston before TCU.
But I was so impressed with Houston because I thought Houston, I knew they were going to be good, but I thought there would be just more attrition on their schedule because of it, and they came through really, really well because they weren't going to get from the – they were going to play the toughest team in their conference, and then they're going to play the fifth toughest team in their conference. But in the old conference, that's a drop. It's a legitimate drop-off. Mm-hmm. The drop-off from 1 to 5 in the Big 12 changes by the actual minute of who is the toughest and who's the healthiest and who's this. And Houston came through it so well, and the way that –
You know why? One, they're really talented, and Kelvin Sampson's an incredible coach.
Yeah, I mean
they played tough.
They were ready for it. They came in ready. Like Texas in the SEC, Kelvin Sampson came in ready for the Big 12 last year. And I'm curious, can UCF showed some positive signs last year? Do they become one of those teams that's a tough out?
BYU with Kevin Young.
BYU, all that.
Geez.
So there's a lot that could happen in the league, 16 teams deep, that you're not getting a night off.
Yeah, I think that was a really good hire by BYU. So I'm
West
intrigued.
Virginia, it's probably going to be a little bit better. They've got some talent in there now.
Cincinnati. I mean, really, we're not just trying to name everybody, but they're all really, really good.
Yeah, Darian DeVries, we'll see, how he does at West Virginia, but that's a program that's obviously had success in the past. So, yeah, you can keep going and going and going. And there will be those teams that are not ready for the top level of competition, but there's a really nice chunk of potential at the top. And so we'll get to see how the calendar looks for the upcoming Big 12 basketball season at some point on Thursday. Final note here, sticking with Big 12 basketball in a minor way here, but Baylor women's basketball will be a part of the 4-team field for the inaugural Coretta Scott King Classic, which will be played in January at the Prudential Center in New Jersey, and more specifically on January the 20th, which is
Martin Luther King Day.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So the Coretta Scott King Classic will feature Baylor, Texas, Maryland, and UCLA in the matchups. Looks like Baylor's playing UCLA. Texas will play Maryland. So that'll be on MLK Day, January 20th, a little Big 12 women's basketball, a part of that with the Bears and Nikki Collin and company. So there's that. And obviously we'll have more dates and things to talk about here in just a couple of days when it comes to hoops, even though it's still very much football season. But there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
All right, Craig, we did not get to a pod yesterday because I'm a malcontent. We didn't get to it. We kind of did, but we had so many things. A lot today, but we will get to pod 1, the Big 12 South, as Craig calls it.
Thank you.
It is Texas Tech, TCU, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. Look back at their weekend, look ahead to their week, things that are going on, injuries, etc. And then John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, around the corner. Did you guys know, one quick NFL note, that the average, what they call what is that term
air
now?
yards?
Air yards in the NFL, that 40% of all throws now are within the backfield or 5 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, they're
it's dink and dunk.
Mel Kiper said the
One
other
for
day.
Jaden Daniels last night, baby.
Yeah.
Go deep, Jaden.
He said that they should ban 2 high safeties, to which most people said, well, run the ball, and the safeties will get closer to the line. So listen up, running backs.
Yeah,
Take advantage. It's your time.
Your time is coming. All right, Jaden Daniels from Arizona State University and LSU. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Stew and Pipe. If you're building something, you need to know who they are. You need to know who they are, and if you don't, well, you're missing out. They have a facility on the east side of I-35 with all the pipe, steel, metal you could ever imagine, and a facility that is just massive. 1943, they opened up their doors, and they just kept fighting, kept grinding, kept getting better, kept adding customers because of not just how good their product was or is, but also because of how they truly, when they say they take care of the customer, they mean it. And now with the bigger, better, faster, and stronger setup on Loop 340 and east of A35, they now have the distribution is more efficient, and it was good. The amount that you can load is more, and yet it was good. And the amount of people who can get in and out with the hauler, 18-wheeler, pickup truck, or whatever is better, and it was good. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, if you're building something, they also specialize in helping people with metal buildings, if that is something that you're going to do. commercial or real estate. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pioneerboys.com.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com. Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Here we go, 365 Sports, about to go through 4 of the 16 Big 12 teams, what they have and where they were this past weekend. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, before we start, I just wanted to ask chat for their help here, because we've got these 4 pods that I put together at the beginning of the year as a way to talk about everybody during the week and not miss anybody, and to get into what happened and what's going to happen. And it's a pretty efficient way to do these things, but I have a pod that needs a name. And the name I was going to give it, I don't think is a name that the fans of those teams would want. So you got Pod 1, which is what we're about to talk about, and that's the Big 12 South. That's Baylor, TCU, Oak State, and Texas Tech. You got Pod 2 is the Big 12 North. That's KU, K-State, Iowa State, West Virginia. And Pod 4, which is the 4 corner schools, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State, and Colorado.
It's the Kleofkoff Conference.
No, it's the 4 corners.
Kleofkoff.
I mean, we could name them, I guess, after figures like they do, like division, like the leaders and legends and things like that. But Pod 3 is the 3 schools that came over from the American. I was thinking the American pod would be easy, but BYU was an independent. So they are the original 4. I don't know if that's great, but we need a catchy name. So you got the Big 12 South, Big 12 North, and 4 corners. What should the UCF, UH, Cincy BYU pod be named, because I don't think you want to be the G5 pod. I'm pretty sure nobody would like that name, but that's what unites them in some ways. So if you got a suggestion, please throw it out there.
Put it in the chat room. All of you are there. We'd love to hear from you, even you, some of you. And so we go with that. And if we come up with something kind of catchy, we'll absolutely use it moving forward and even maybe give you a little bit of love for coming up with it. Okay, let's start with Oklahoma State. The game at the end was not as close as the game that was for 3.5 quarters. Ollie Gordon couldn't run the ball. Oklahoma State couldn't run the ball. Bowman was awful, and Utah State played keep away. They now have, for this week, in Manhattan, in a game that's almost like not survival, but two teams coming off getting their asses kicked in Oklahoma State at K-State.
This is, for Oklahoma State, from that perspective, we'll talk about K-State later in the week, obviously, but they can't run the ball. They can't rely on passing to win games in the Big 12. Alan Bowman played the worst game he's played at Oklahoma State this week. Garrett Rangel came in and was even worse. Alan Bowman's going to remain the starter, and there's no question about that, especially after you watch Garrett Rangel. But they've got problems on offense, and they've got problems on defense. This is not a team that looks like they're going to contend to be in Arlington at the end of the year right now. They've got to get that running game going behind what is a veteran offensive line. I mean, one of the things when I ranked them fourth and the poke mob came for me, they were like, hey, we've got this returning offensive line. There are all these guys, all these veterans. We got Ollie Gordon. Alan Bowman's better than you're giving him credit for. Well, so far, that's not played itself out. Almost lost to Arkansas. Did, in fact, lose and got manhandled physically by Utah, and that is not their style. And you've even got Gundy saying what we said earlier in the show about got to coach better, got to prepare better, got to play better. All these things going on with Oklahoma State. So this is the reason I wasn't confident picking them to, be in the championship game, and I put them at fourth. But right now they're not even looking like a team that looks like they can hang at fourth.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have some issues running the football. That's been surprising because so much of the preseason talk was about having a pretty sturdy offensive line with your tackles coming back in particular and having your running back and your quarterback and everybody coming back basically. So I don't know what's amiss there other than on Saturday it was that Alan Bowman played really bad football and his backup played even worse. And so Alan Bowman's the best option that they have, and he better play better or this is going to be the result more often than it's not. They're not good enough defensively either. There's just a lot of things to get better at and clean up for Oklahoma State. And I don't know how many of those things they are going to be able to clean up to the extent that it makes a massive difference in the overall results. But that was a reality check on Saturday that you kind of got some vibes early on that could go that way. But certainly they made it look a lot more respectable with the showing in the fourth quarter. Utah, held on, if you will, but they dominated that game. They stayed on the field. They were much better on keeping drives alive. That's one thing Oklahoma State was really bad at the other night. So they weren't able to. First of all, they didn't have great play at quarterback, so that really killed just everything when you're talking about offense. But look at this stat here. This is something Gundy brought up. Utah was 5 of 18 on third down. That's not great by any means, but Oklahoma State was 4 of 15. Okay, so they were even worse. But here's the big stat. Utah was 4 of 5 on fourth down.
Mm-hmm.
4 of 5 on fourth down. That was a key difference along with Bowman's bad play and no run game. And so, yeah, they got a lot of things to clean up. And anyone's guess how this goes this weekend, man, because both those teams are coming off of such tough losses. I think that I go Kansas State here by the slightest of margins because it's Manhattan, but this really does feel like a big toss-up game, and somebody's going to be much worse for wear, whoever comes out on the losing side of this, because you will suddenly be 0-2 in conference play. So, yeah, it's a big one for the Pokes, and they need to get right, man, because it's not been a good look so far.
What would you rather be, or where would you rather be? I know you always, if you can, want to play at home, but is it sometimes better to get the hell out of where you are?
Perhaps.
So you don't hear the fact that you suck throughout the week?
You're not sitting in Manhattan all week long, so you're still hearing that at home for the majority of the week. You're just flying in there on Friday night. But I don't know. I don't think you'd rather play on the road than at home, but I know there are some certain circumstances where that's just, a coach is on a hot seat and the home crowd's not supporting him, but that's not the case with the Cowboys. I don't think you want to go to Manhattan and play no matter how loud the paddle people might be getting over the way you're playing. But maybe you're right. Maybe they do need to get out of Stillwater and go play somewhere where they're getting yelled at, and that'll make a difference. Right now, K-State, 4.5 favorites in this game. Again, that's where I would go right now. But, I mean, I haven't been blown away by what I've seen from them either. So this is a really interesting bounce back for both teams.
All right, so there's Oklahoma State, one of the teams that we discussed. And there's a team that's gotten on a nice little couple of wins back-to-back in Texas Tech. And Texas Tech will be at home against Cincinnati. The Red Raiders have been able to kind of get inside Lubbock and get under their, like in their bubble and turn things around a little bit, beat Arizona State. Taj Brooks with 100 yards. Baron Morton was efficient. And now they get Cincinnati, who just smoked University of Houston at home, and that's a 7 o'clock game in Lubbock.
Texas Tech is the only team we're going to talk about in a segment that feels good waking up Monday morning. They I think the last 2 weeks feel like they've righted the ship. They didn't contain Cam Scadaboo, but no one does. I mean, he had like 100, almost 200 total yards. Didn't get to 100 yards rushing, but had over 100 yards receiving. Scored touchdowns. He's just an amazing player. But they only gave up 22 points after only giving up 21 points. So the defense playing better the last 2 weeks. Now, does that hold when they get in, deeper and deeper into the conference? Hopefully for them it does. But Joe McGuire's got to stop starting slow, because they then get in this kind of stop and start thing there in Lubbock. But if they can get on a roll, we've seen them get on a roll before, and they're really difficult to stop. Also, Taj Brooks is back, and the team is completely different when he's there. Well, obviously, you saw no Wazoo. They didn't win. He comes back against North Texas and Arizona State, and guess what happens? They win.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player. He is the face of the franchise in Lubbock, Texas. That's for damn sure. And, yeah, it's been good to have him back the last couple of weeks. Just a steady Eddie and a bruiser. And, I mean, that's the guy. It's like pulling one of the stones from the Infinity Gauntlet. Like, he's one of those guys for them that gives them their full power. So, really good to see him just continue doing what he's typically been doing. But to see Texas Tech in Lubbock is a different thing than seeing Texas Tech, I feel like, anywhere else. And the good news for them is they're in Lubbock again this week. I know Joey McGuire has a lot of respect for Scott Satterfield and Cincinnati, and quite frankly, Cincinnati might be a team not getting enough respect. This is the type of game that can give them some of that and have people talking about them a bit more, because I just feel like they're sort of on an island, and they're just not as ingrained yet as some of the other programs, or maybe as loud as some of the other programs, and so they just sort of get lost in the shuffle sometimes, even though they're a former playoff team. So this is a really intriguing game that, to listen to McGuire tell it, sure, he's pumping up his fans like, oh, you got to be here for this one, and they'll jam-pack Jones AT&T. But I think also you're mentally preparing yourself for what you expect to be a tough contest. I'd go Tech here because they're, again, back at home. It feels like that's where they always play, but that should certainly benefit them to be in Lubbock for the third straight week. Yep. The only road trip was to Washington State, and we saw how that went. I think that this will be a nice back-and-forth game. I'd go Tech in Lubbock, but, Baron Morton's just got to, take care of the football and just keep getting better. Young guys on defense keep getting better on the offensive line. And, man, you're 3-1 when it felt like you could have very easily have been a very, very low 0-2 with that ACU debacle in week 1. So they are fortunate to be where they are. But now they go from doom and gloom to, like, we could beat Cincinnati, and then we're 4-1, and we could beat Arizona, and we could beat, and you look at their schedule, all of a sudden you're like, well, damn, Baylor's not that impressive. TCU's not that impressive. Like, Iowa State's great, but beyond that, like, there's a lot of winnable games here.
There's a chance to get on a run. Anybody in this conference that can put multiple wins together in a row, let's say 3 or more, is in really, really good shape. Mm-hmm. Now, there's also a chance if you're Kansas or you're TCU or you're Kansas State and Oklahoma State, who had pretty high hopes that you could find yourself losing 2 or 3 in a row, and then you're done. Speaking of TCU, in a game that was just an absolute embarrassment in Dallas, getting smoked by SMU, Sonny Dykes ejected, and it made me ask this question: when was the last time a college coach, unless they bumped an official, was ejected from a game? We'll get to that in a moment, but guys, TCU, Kansas, who has more of a must-win? TCU, Kansas, Kansas State, or Oklahoma State?
Well, it's TCU and Kansas before the other two because they both now have multiple losses in a row. Kansas is 1-3. TCU has lost their last two, and last week looked as bad as I thought they could possibly look this year in a rivalry game. Everything went bad. Again, Sonny Dykes gets kicked out of the game. All of this happens, and yeah, TCU looks really bad. They need a win badly. Kansas needs a win badly. I don't think you can say one needs one more than the other. Kansas has played a slightly tougher schedule to this point in the season than TCU has, but I say slightly. And but TCU needs to get right on defense very, very badly. They've got a ton of problems that Andy Avalos has to fix. Josh Hoover's been great, but they still can't run the ball. So they've got, of the things you need to do to win, stop the run, stop the pass, run the ball, pass the ball, to have balance on both sides, they're only doing one of those things. And if they don't start doing more of those things, they're going to see more games like the ones they had the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'd say of that group, this is the matchup of the top two that need to win the most, but definitely Kansas because they're at home and they're also 1-3. So you suddenly lose this game and you're probably not making a bowl game at that rate. And so I think that Kansas needs it to just get their second win, which everybody else that you mentioned already has. But, Josh Hoover is the best player on TCU's team. He's the face of the franchise. I made that reference a little while ago as well. He still had a couple picks, which hurt, obviously, but they just got demolished in that first quarter. It was 17-0. Right out of the first frame, and then after that, it was a back-and-forth shootout-style game, but SMU always had an answer, and SMU just thoroughly thumped them. We talk about the Big 12, ACC, and all that. SMU rolled into the ACC and just kicked TCU's ass. I don't know any other way to put it more simply than that. They did. And Sonny Dykes, would you believe that's the first time watching him on the sidelines that he's ever been tossed before?
Well, no. He became the first head coach of a Power 4 program to be disqualified from a game for multiple unsportsmanlike conduct penalties since the rule was established in 2016.
And he said the first one that he got the warning, what did he say? The first one wasn't really that valid. The second one was valid, and he went too far.
It's like a manager wanting to get kicked out.
But I'm saying, watching him, though, these last few years up close.
No, he's fiery.
Are you surprised that's the first time he's been ejected? I am.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm not so sure a couple of years ago when they played in Dallas against SMU where he didn't go almost to the edge of flipping a switch.
Yeah, but they got big games from Jack Betch and Eric McAllister, who came over from Boise State. Just not enough, though, in a shootout like this where SMU clearly had more firepower. That run game, I really thought Cam Cook was going to be pretty good, but there's just nothing doing there right now. They don't have a run game, and I remember a time when Baylor was looking for a head coach, and the name Sonny Dykes was floated a lot, and I was against it. He was at Cal at the time. I just didn't think he was the right fit at the right time. They went Matt Rule, I believe, but then it got brought back up again a second wave with Dave Aranda, and I still was not on board Sonny Dykes. Then they go make the national championship game, and I'm sitting there going, hey, I'm honest with myself. Was I wrong? Was Sonny Dykes actually the perfect guy for Baylor? You look at it now, and this is the reasons that a lot of people would not want to hire Sonny Dykes. It's kind of what you're seeing right now, right? It's some of the same issues that plagued them at Cal, some of the attitudes, some of the things like that, and you wonder, was the outlier that playoff run with all of Gary Patterson's players? If you want to have that conversation, is this the reality for TCU with Sonny Dykes? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's a large portion of the fan base that does not like the annex, and they don't like the football the way it's being played. And there is an element of that, not that he's on a hot seat, but there's an element of fans not being real happy with Sonny Dykes.
He did take him to the national championship game. But, again, what have you done for me lately? In 2021, Bowling Green's Scott Loeffler became the first FBS head coach ever ejected for multiple unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Dykes was the first P4, if that's not even really
only
a term.
two guys ever.
And Hoover, I should mention, had 2 interceptions. He also had 2 lost fumbles. So he's a great player, but he's got to hang on to the football,
every way possible.
They were dominant. So that was a bad look. I don't know where TCU is, man. This is a big gut check game for them. They are not where I thought they'd be a month into the season. So this is it's a big one for both them and Kansas.
It has been kind of a free fall since 2022. And, this has been a kind of a surprising start. Not that they lost. SMU's good. But they did get just embarrassed in Dallas just down the road on Highway 30 up on Mockingbird. Now, Baylor, and we've discussed them. We've had the guest in Ricky Thompson. Baylor at home against unbeaten top 25 BYU, who took care of business, made Kansas State like it. This is a nice little rivalry that's been reinvented since that game in '84 when Steve Young threw for like forever amount of yards. But Baylor, BYU, Kalani Sitake will join us on Thursday's show. Thoughts about the Bears?
I'd like their chances this week. They're slight favorites. I think that's about how I feel as well. I think they should be slightly favored as much as BYU's gone unbeaten to this point. I feel like just on a matchup-to-matchup basis, there's enough there for Baylor and being at home to be able to win this football game. Beyond that, won't shock me if they don't. And if they don't, then, man, it's going to be a really hard conversation moving forward because you're going to suddenly be under 500, and the heat's going to get turned up on Dave Aranda, and it already is just based on the Colorado loss. I think the Bears are plenty capable of winning their fair share of games. I still think they're good enough to go win 4 more and make a bowl game, but this is the type of game that it's almost a must-win, guys. Like, it really is. I mean, getting 3-2 versus 2-3, and then suddenly looking ahead at the schedule, their bounce back and reaction to last week will be very telling on the direction we're going to go with this football team.
If they come out and they look lethargic and start slowly,
and they're in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble. If they come out and they play the way they did against Colorado for 3 quarters and 75% of the other final fourth quarter, I think they beat BYU. But that was just brutal. That was brutal, and that put a hole in the tire, and so you just hope that thing doesn't fall off as you're driving down the road.
Well, just play like you did in Boulder, except make plays when the game's on the line or make plays to close it out, and they did not.
Look, if your opponent is on the ground bleeding out, finish them.
Yeah.
Simple.
Step on their neck.
Finish them. They need to be playing some Mortal Kombat this week.
You're a violent.
In their spare time.
I'm supposed to be the one.
But, dude, they could be walking into this 3-1 very, very easily and feeling entirely different. But that is going back to what Mike Gundy said earlier, and even Kyle Whittingham said the same. Like, the margin for error in this league is so small. I mean, it's the little things and making one more play. And so we'll see if Baylor's able to bounce back. But that's what I'm looking for them. That was a tough loss, but you're still just 2-2. You know you should have won that game. But how do you respond to that? That'll be the whole tale for the Bears.
Well, here's another thing, and we take a break, come back with John McClain. In this league, if you go, okay, there's a win, that's when you're in trouble. Because no one thought of that about BYU. Maybe Cincinnati's a little bit better than we thought. We knew UCF was going to be good, and they are. Didn't know how good. We'll find out even more. Colorado, maybe they've kind of found a little magic. I don't know. But that's what makes this conference so fun. Week in and week out, whether there's anybody ranked in the top 5 or not. Right now, Utah at number 10. When we come back, John McClain's 3rd week of the NFL season, and his thoughts about this or that, stats and trends. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. Baylor, as I mentioned, at home against BYU. So what does that mean? Specials. This week, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. They have ribeye steak, select, choice, and prime on sale. Pork spare ribs on sale. St. Louis-style ribs on sale. Great for tailgating. Baby back ribs on sale. Fresh chicken wings, $3.65 a pound. 16 to 20 amount of shrimp, a 1-pound bag for $6.75 a pound. It's almost that time of cooking something like etouffee, jambalaya, or gumbo. And raw coiled shrimp is $3.25 a pound. Remember, they always have charcoal and pellet fuel if you need that for your smoker or your grill or both. And they have cold beer and wine. If you want to order tri-tip, brisket, or whatever else you need, sausage and wings for your tailgating, call them now and then go pick it up and have it available for the game. That is an 11 o'clock kick, Central Time, in Waco at McLean Stadium. The Bauer family and more. Brian sent me a text. I guess it was Sunday morning. I just feel like Baylor's football's jinxed. There's been some moments where they've made some things happen, and there's also been a few of those when you wonder, what in the hell? Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal's.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We usually start with a Texans question for John McClain, and we ask about the Cowboys. But with his wife being a huge Washington Commanders fan, John, is she pumped up over Jaden Daniels?
Well, are you?
Yeah. Craig,
Of course you
we're
are.
thrilled. Yeah, thrilled.
How could anybody who's been a fan of the Redskins / football team / Commanders not be a fan of what they've seen? And I think we've talked about this, that when Cliff Kingsbury, he interviewed with the Raiders. I think he interviewed with the Bears. He interviewed with the Texans as an advisor to first-time play caller Bobby Slowick last year. And then when he came to Washington, why wouldn't the Bears have hired him to coach Caleb Williams, who he called plays for last year? Instead, they went with Shane Waldron, and he went to Washington. Of course, Jaden Daniels, I know it's early, but the guy is so good, so exciting, fearless, and Kingsbury's doing a great job. There's two things Daniels going to accomplish. He's going to help Kingsbury get another head coaching job, and he's going to help Washington get a stadium in the district down by RFK, and it's going to be known unofficially as the house that Jaden built, because people in the district right now are so pumped, just like you are, just like my wife is, because of what they witnessed last night. And I like Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know him well, but I've known him a while, and I'm really happy for him. And so I thought it was so exciting. as you know, what that franchise went through with Daniel Snyder is unprecedented in NFL history, other than Donald Sterling, maybe in pro sports history. And then to get Josh Harris as a predominant owner, get a new coach in Dan Quinn, and then your new quarterback, and it being so exciting. I like it when the storied franchises like Washington, Detroit, Cleveland, when they do well. I think it's better for the league. It's not good for the league if the Cowboys have gone from first to worst, which right now is very possible if they lose to the Giants on Monday Night Football. But I don't know if they can sustain it in Washington.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But it's certainly fun. And of all the standard that C.J. Stroud set last year for rookies is unfair to expect others. But right now, he raised those expectations to the sky-high level.
John, the Texans lost. They struggled to move the ball on the Vikings. Sam Darnold looks like he's a different player altogether. And Kevin O'Connell just kind of working miracles up there in Minnesota. Was that not so much an indictment of the Texans, but maybe a showing of what Minnesota is able to do?
Well, first of all, Sam Darnold's doing what Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, other quarterbacks have done. They bounce around till they land in a good situation with a good head coach, with a good offense, good offensive coaching, stability from ownership. And that's what's happened with Darnold. And he's going to have this one season. If he stays healthy, I have no reason to think he won't keep playing well. And he played really well because the Texans got him, sacked him 4 times, hit him a lot. He threw some passes right as he was getting hit, kind of like Shadur Sanders. And I think that Minnesota is legit, but they ran the ball not great. One guy had 39-yard run. Other than that, they would have given up 70-something yards and 2 a carry on the other carries. And so, but Darnold and Texans couldn't cover Justin Jefferson in the first half. They made adjustments at halftime, and he didn't catch a ball in the second half. But when you got an offensive lineman like left tackle Laramie Tunsil, who commits 5 penalties and has 10 for the season in 3 games and 1 that was declined, it's unbelievable. 2 illegal procedures. He's had 2 illegal procedures in each of the 3 games. And he's had this problem his whole career. But then he didn't line up right 3 times, and then the other one was declined. So when you got an offensive line that is getting pulverized by the run, and then you have to abandon the run, they're lucky C.J. Stroud wasn't hurt. And Stroud had 3 completions for 60 yards called back because of penalties, 2 on the offensive lineman and 1 on a tight end.
What did you think about what Malik Willis was able to do against the Titans?
Phenomenal, Craig. Phenomenal. And there's 2 things. Amy Adams Strunk, the owner of the Titans, may have already gone back to her head coach Brian Callahan or GM Rand Cawthorn and said, "Now, tell me again why we didn't bring back Derrick Henry for $8 million when we were spending a fortune of our cap money on other players, and why did we trade Malik Willis and keep Mason Rudolph?" Well, that's a great example of what you can do when you go to a team that has great coaching like Matt LaFleur does there. They ran the ball great. Right now, he's leading Willis in 2 starts. He's leading the NFL in average per carry and average per pass attempt, and he may not play another down.
You know, it seems like to me, not always, but the Packers are like maybe the 49ers or the Rams and a couple of other teams that no matter what happens to them, whoever is available, they don't blink. That doesn't mean it doesn't lead to a loss or 2 because you could lose a superstar, but the Packers seem to be kind of that team.
That's a great point, David. You know, they're a lot different than they were when Aaron Rodgers was there and everything centered on him. They've been able to run the ball this year. They've been able to play defense, and they've been able to show they're capable of winning that division over, I guess, Minnesota now. in Minnesota, Green Bay. I think I don't think the Bears are a contender to win that division, but it's going to be interesting when Jordan Love comes back, and I don't think they'll rush him. There's no need to rush him, so we don't know if he'll play in the next game or the next one, but he's coming back, and hopefully he'll play well. And Malik Willis, let's see, I think he'll have one more year under his contract, but if that's all he plays, he's going to have a great tape to help him make some money.
John, the Cowboys are terrible, and most people saw this coming except, I think, the Cowboys. And I don't see them all of a sudden learning how to stop the run, getting better at defensive tackle, going out and making a trade for a running back, even though it was obvious you needed one before the season starts, because they kind of feel like they like their roster the way it is, because Jerry kind of got set in his ways here. What's the future like for them?
Well, everybody knows, Paul, going back to last offseason, they needed to find a running back. Derrick Henry lives there in offseason. He works out there. They never even called his agent. And then Jerry Jones said he was too expensive. Mike Florio went on and detailed how they could have signed him for $8 million a year, what they could have done moving around money. And it just, for whatever reason, they didn't call him and say, hey, what would it cost? And it would have cost $8 million. And now they don't have a running game. And they were blind to see what everybody else saw. But nobody saw them being the worst team in the NFL against the run. I think I saw this stat that it's the most yards they've given up after 3 games rushing since 63 or something like that. But they got no hope on their running game, and that just puts more pressure on Dak Prescott. And that's the last thing Dak needs. And I saw today where CeeDee Lamb has the least amount of separation on his yards. So I don't know what's up with him either, but boy, Jerry Jones has not fired a coach in season since Wade Phillips in 2010. But if they lose to the Giants and they've gone from first to worst, I don't think Jerry's going to put up with it. But I'd be very careful if I'm Mike Zimmer, and of course he would take it over. But if you can't run because you don't have the talent, you can't run. They have done their team, their fans, a terrible injustice by not finding a running back when they're out there everywhere.
You mentioned Mike Zimmer. Craig, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I have a non-NFL question.
You mentioned, I
have a non-NFL question, so go ahead.
You mentioned Mike Zimmer. You're not going to bring up Boulder, are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Yeah,
I'm going to,
You
John.
mentioned Mike Zimmer, who after the game against a very bad team in Cleveland, everyone thought it was a genius, a fresh look from what Dan Quinn did. I'm not saying he's a heck of a coach, but one of the things that I always respected about how the Cowboys played with Dan Quinn, and yes, they had their weaknesses and some of them similar, is that it looked like the players would run through a damn brick wall that was on fire with a gasoline suit on. And it looks like they're doing that a little bit in Washington. Again, it's early. They could end up 4 and whatever. But is Zimmer at fault in any way because of what's going on?
Well, you're right, because number one, Dan Quinn is the players' coach. Everybody loves Dan Quinn, the players, the media, front office people, and now they're going to love him even more after that game last night and the start they have right now, where Zimmer's your old-time drill sergeant who I don't know if he's changed since he left the Cowboys for Minnesota when he was a defensive coordinator, and he was a good one. But sometimes you got to adapt to players today. Don't know if he has, don't know if he's trying to make his system fit them or them fit his system, which is a recipe for disaster unless you got a couple of drafts and free agent periods to do it. Like y'all, I'm shocked that they're this bad against the run. We knew that Baltimore was going to run on a lot of yards because they always run on everybody, but nobody saw what was coming with New Orleans. And then New Orleans just got humiliated and by the Eagles. So it's amazing right now how bad things are with the Cowboys. And can you imagine what you guys will be talking about on Monday? If the Cowboys, Tuesday, if the Cowboys lose to the Giants, because Monday hopefully you're talking about that Baylor upset of BYU.
It's actually a Thursday game. Is it the game with the Giants on Thursday?
Yeah, it's Thursday night.
Might be the best thing that happened to them to get the stench out and go play the Giants, who, of course, they own the Giants. They do. Craig, go ahead. Do the do.
All right, John. It looked like Baylor was well on their way to a fantastic effort in Boulder. Great plan against the Buffs, and unfortunately, the execution just wasn't there when it needed to be in various ways. Your thoughts on that debacle and that heartbreaker in Boulder, Colorado?
Well, first of all, I thought your dad and Paul were out of their minds to pick Baylor to win a game. And I thought you were the only sane one out of your threesome because you picked Colorado. But then I started thinking, boy, David and Paul are going to look pretty smart. And I tell you what, Baylor's so much better than it was last year. I mean, there's no doubt. Dave Aranda's a good defensive coach. And Sawyer Robertson, he's so much better throwing the ball than Finn. And that injury may turn out to be a positive thing for Baylor. But what bothered me, and I've been watching Baylor football since I was a Cub Scout in 1960 when we went to see the first game of Colorado. And I can't remember any game, including the 63 7-3 loss at UT, that bothered me more than this one because it was national TV, because it was the prime times. And it would have meant so much to Aranda and the Baylor program to pull it out on national TV and to beat Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter. He's one of the greatest players anybody's ever seen. And what bothered me was the field goal looked like he was trying to kick it to Grand Junction instead of between the uprights, like a big snowstorm came in and moved it. And then the defense at the end, the kid being open in man coverage and it bouncing off his chest, I wondered, had he caught the ball because he jumped and gone down, clock would have run out. Everybody just assumes he jumps, he catches it, and he runs over the goal line. But the other thing, when you play a Hail Mary, you rush 3 and you drop everybody. And if the quarterback can get the ball in the end zone, you put your guys just inside the goal line, your other guys outside, and you tell them, knock the ball down. 8 guys are back. No way you can have man coverage. So they blew that. What bothered me, the safety in the end zone closest to the receiver in the corner, he reacted too late. He ran over. And then he didn't dive to try to knock it away. He just ran over. And then I felt so bad on the fumble, but man, what a great play by Travis Hunter. And hopefully Baylor can bounce back. I think playing BYU is good. I watched BYU win their game Saturday night. But this Baylor team is going to win some games. And right now, there's no great team in the Big 12. People talk about Utah without Cam Rising. They're going to lose some games. So I'm not saying Baylor's going to win the Big 12. I'm just saying they're going to probably win enough to keep Dave Aranda's job.
Thank you very much, John
Thank
McClain.
you, guys. Thank them Bears.
All right, a couple of notes, and then we get to the top 5. Michael Hawkins, Venables, mentioned this on his radio show that he will start against Auburn this weekend, the freshman who came in for what appears to be a mess right now with Jackson Arnold at quarterback.
By the way, Hugh Freeze has asked if Jackson Arnold isn't starting for Oklahoma, if he can come play for Auburn, because he hates his quarterbacks.
Yeah. The Earl Campbell, Craig, you're an OU fan. Thoughts real quickly on Hawkins?
I mean, I said this yesterday. I think you have to do that. He played better. Jackson Arnold's got talent, but he just does not protect the football and doesn't make the right throws when needed. So as much talent as he has, he's not the guy right now. They need somebody to give them confidence, and Michael Hawkins at least did that last week.
Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award, the winner. Cam Ward, Incarnate Word, Washington State, and now Miami had himself a game in the win for Miami. Over the weekend, he really had a 300-yard game the week before. That's what Arch Manning wanted. 404 yards, 3 touchdowns. And they absolutely, after trailing in the second quarter, turned on the Jets to beat USF 50-15.
Yeah, his first 400-yard game of the season. He'd only thrown for 346, 304, and 385 prior to that. Threw his second pick, so that was one downside. But he's got a 14-2 touchdown to interception ratio right now. He also had his highest rushing game with 43 yards. You look at like his QBRs, and I know people are going to have different feelings on different statistics and things, but it's not often you see 96.4, 91.8, 92.8, 94.1. Like, he's so sharp and so efficient and just really on the money right now. So, he's given Miami a totally new look.
Just like Jaden Daniels played at Arizona State, Cam Ward played at Incarnate Word. Garrett, don't forget that.
The same.
I remember.
Arizona State, Incarnate Word, the same.
All right, when we come back, in fact, right now, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Don't forget to use the 365 Sports hashtag and get $25 off your first $100 of buying product at TexasBeefHouse.com. Paul's Top 5.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Top 5, presented by our good friends at the esteemed Texas Beef House. Go to bidonbeef.com, use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout at the next auction. Believe me, you'll be thrilled that you did. The best Wagyu beef you can get at TexasBeefHouse.com and bidonbeef.com. Let's talk about some Big 12 issues today that popped up over a really interesting weekend in the Big 12, where upsets happened, things, didn't go the way we thought they would. Oklahoma State's run game. Look, I know their defense is an issue, definitely an issue, but 11 carries for 42 yards. This is not the first time this year that Ollie Gordon, who's one of the best running backs in the country, has been contained. And again, I'm not trying to knock Alan Bowman, but if Ollie Gordon isn't rolling, neither is that offense most of the time. So if Oklahoma State wants to get back in this thing, Zero's got to get the ball and Zero's got to be effective, because if not, this is going to be a long season for the Pokes, especially given their defensive issues. Number 4. Eventually. This is good TV, isn't it, folks? There we go. Kansas State's front lines. Usually a strength, but they've got some inexperience here on either side of the ball. Plus, after that 38-9 loss to BYU, where they were out-physicaled, which does not happen to Kansas State all that much, and they were out-gridded. Again, that doesn't happen to Chris Kleiman teams that much. I think this is not just a front lines issue, but maybe just an experience and maturity issue that will come. But my goodness, did BYU ever stomp them the other night, and they just never got going. And BYU was able to have the game go the way they wanted it to. They muddied the water a lot and had a big play on special teams, and everything kind of went their way. So the front lines need to get better. They need to get more physical. They need to start playing the real Kansas State style of football again, which I don't think is impossible. But
maybe the youth on this team is going to show throughout the season more than I personally thought it would this year. Number 3, Baylor's ability to close. They had Colorado right where they needed them to be. Desperate, needing a miracle, and what happened? The studs for Colorado on defense and on offense shone out. Whether it's Shadur Sanders throwing an absolute dime into the end zone on the Hail Mary to LeJontay Wester to tie the game, or Travis Hunter knocking the ball out of Dominic Richardson's hands at the 1-yard line as Baylor was going in to tie the game in overtime. This is where Dave Aranda has to get better. This has happened to them a lot. TCU a couple years ago. Colorado. I can go on and on and on. West Virginia, a game that they had in complete control 2 years ago and then completely let the wheels fall off. They have got to learn to close. You've got a team dead to rights, then make them dead. Like, end it. They just don't. And this is a problem, and this is why the seat gets warmer on Dave Aranda because of things like this. They played about as well as you could for most of the game against a team that's athletically a little bit more gifted than in Colorado, especially when you talk about Sanders and Hunter and Wester and Shepard and Horn. Those guys all better than most of the players that Baylor has. But Baylor, collectively as a team, played really, really well for most of it, but could not close it out. Number 2, TCU's defense. My God. Andy Avalos has a lot of work to do. And look, was brought in for a reason because Sonny Dykes needed that side of the ball to be better. But the last game and a half, the second half against UCF and the entire game against SMU, an unmitigated disaster for TCU's defense. And maybe Gus Malzahn and UCF broke TCU, but their defense, their confidence, a lot of things have to change in Fort Worth. Otherwise, it's going to be another really long year for them because they've got to get out in front and stop people because it was not good the last 6 quarters that they've played. And number 1 is any team capable of winning a playoff game. Yes, Stan Laurel, I'm as confused as you are. Now, Utah right now in the driver's seat. BYU's undefeated, but let's not get out of our skis, BYU fans. It's good right now, but the schedule is going to continue to be tough. But watching Oklahoma State this week, watching Kansas, who I thought could have been that team, fall out of this thing, and then watching Kansas State get absolutely drilled on the road by BYU makes me wonder, yeah, there's going to be a team in the playoff, probably just one in the Big 12, but are they capable? Do they have the athletes to win a playoff game? I just don't know. That is going to be really, really interesting come the end of the year. That's going to do it for us. I'm Paul Catalina. This is the Top 5, and this is the end of the show right after this.
All right, Paul, so last week or a week or two ago, you said something about fantasy football. You do that on Tuesday evenings. When can people see it?
I know that tonight, possibly tonight, but definitely tomorrow morning on that damn Fantasy Show channel.
And it's a channel inside the umbrella of Sikkim 365 Sports.
Yeah, we're doing it at 6:30 tonight. So.
All right, and then tomorrow I'll have the high school football podcast, and then we'll have that up live usually around 10 o'clock Thursday mornings, thanks to Garrett and also Mr. McKenzie. Emery's working on 365 Sports tonight. Thanks to all of you. A lot of newcomers the week of Colorado, and also this week with some of the notes and news about the Pac-12 and Mountain West, whatever happens there. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, for Emery, Jack, and Garrett, for you, our great audience, whether it's on Twitter at 365 Sports, YT, or here on 365 Sports, or even the Sikkim 365 app. I'm David Smoak. We thank you, we appreciate you, and have a great night.